while the male protagonist is always reincarnated or transported to another world against his will. For example, if you are stabbed, killed, caught too much and die, or while watching, you will be sucked into the game. In general, he is peaceful and happy. He suddenly changes his head. The male protagonist of this series loves every single coin for the chance to be drawn into another world, because he heard that people from there brought a pile of gold with them and became very rich. So Sejun saved every last penny to buy a ticket to enter the tower. He ate nearly expired food and bought almost wilted vegetables, living harder than a dog to save money but still not getting 10% of the money. Then suddenly the author stopped. The space gate leading into the tower suddenly opened in front of him. As soon as Sejun saw it, he howled with excitement and shouted his name loudly as if announcing it. Park Sejun will spend his whole life climbing the black hole tower. Please suck me in, hahaha. Ordinary people should be terrified when they see this gate. This guy must have been mentally ill if he bit down on a rock or something and is so excited like this. The gate, feeling uneasy, gradually narrowed and decided to fly away Sejun. How could he accept that he was carrying a bag full of determination, and Sejun threw himself into that black hole. If you don't suck me in, I'll jump in myself. He'll stick his head in. I'll fall and hit my face on the ground. But in my heart, I like the first floor of the tower. It's definitely a place to choose a career before making money. But when the car was used to look up, I only saw myself in a cave without a training ground or shopping area, as the returnees said. Exactly, he is in an underground cave with only sunlight shining down on the photosynthesizing spheres. Hong Mang, oh my god. Is he really the male protagonist of this series, or is this just a technical error? 10 years ago on a beautiful day, suddenly, in Seoul, Korea, a 99-story tower appeared blacker than a piece of dog shit, towering over the city of Gangnam. Not only does North Korea have a total of 100 towers appearing all over the world every year, but suddenly something huge appears. Every country's government sent people to explore and concluded that the 990m high tower was cast in one piece from an unusually solid material that could not even leave a single hole in a bomb, so no one could find a way inside. Suddenly one day, a few people broke through the wall of the tower and came back out. He didn't go to Nin but suddenly debuted in front of the press, who was looking like an idol to get information about how to get in and out of the tower. I didn't know anything. Suddenly I was sitting drinking coffee and milk tea when I was sucked into a black hole. When I woke up, I found myself on the first floor of the ironing tower, fully clothed. Those people are called false awakenings by the media. Randomly selected by some force from many parts of the world and dropped into 100 towers. They held a press conference and only talked about what they basically knew on the first floor. Allows awakening to choose a profession that most people choose to be a mage or warrior. After clearing a floor, that person will receive different rewards along with a ticket. This thing that looks like a talisman is indeed a ticket to freely enter and exit the tower. Other people can use it to enter and exit, but only the old awakened person can climb the tower. Below is someone. Raise your hand and ask if anyone knows what purpose this tower exists and why people brave the dangers and monsters inside to get in. No one knows the reason those towers appear, but the reason many people want to get involved is there. The fake awakened girl stood next to her, just waiting to open the wooden box in her hand, from which a pile of bright gold poured out like a stream. No need to say how scared the journalists were. Working as a salaried employee, my boss cursed my head and neck and saw a pile of gold lying on the ground like that. Everyone automatically understood the reason. When I entered the tower, I was worn out, and when I left, I didn't understand why. Rich. So the extremely awakening story of selling an entrance ticket from 150 million to 200 million in just a short time with hundreds of people lining up for it is gradually becoming a matter of course. The grocery store owner was not very excited when she heard the news. I think this group is full of fat forests, do you see that? Sejun was 26 years old at that time and bought goods at a discount, so whatever the lady said, he agreed. Surfing the phone, roughly calculating tuition fees, bank interest and rent, his total balance before now is about 12 million. The result in a few months is only so much. If the ticket price increases further, I don't know the date when I can buy the ticket. Have all of Sejun's teeth fallen out? He stared at the black tower reaching into the sky. suddenly let out a heavy sigh. Then suddenly I remembered that I couldn't be discouraged. He howled to himself and encouraged himself that he would definitely become president soon. Look at the onions that Sejun just bought at a discount. Sometimes her husband is like the idols posted online. Can earn a decent amount of money. Thinking of a bright future from a guy who stacks green onions to become a tower-clearing hero. Then I proposed to Blackpink's Jisoo and I felt so happy that my mouth was watering. Encouraging myself enthusiastically. Suddenly, behind Sejun, something swirling appeared larger and larger. Until its shadow fell over my head and the wind blew it everywhere. Only then did he realize there was a change and turned around to see the gate. Sejun immediately recognized that this was the thing that had sucked the false awakening and the tower. But he blushed with excitement. The time has come. The mother's body went into the black hole even though it tried its best to refuse. And that's how he appeared in the empty cave. This is not the first floor as rumored, even worse than the parking lot. On the right there is a lake of water, I don't know if it is drinkable or not. Above there is a skylight. Looking at the clouds in general, it also relaxes the mind. Only inside Sejun's cheek hobbit top sat like a god-dang lacking sleep and lacking hope. Sejun wandered in this cave for a full day and didn't see any way out. After asking for help, crying and rapping without missing anything, he realized there was no one nearby. Perhaps this is the story of Alice lost in Wonderland. The poor version of Sejun falls into a land of utter confusion. Suddenly the phone in my pocket rang an alarm. It was 6 a.m. the next day, the prehistoric man's 24-hour challenge had already been completed. Only now did he realize that he was so hungry that he looked straight at the bag of groceries he bought yesterday, still fresh. A bottle of water with 27 cherry tomatoes. 0 green onions, a few sweet potatoes, a pumpkin, and an apple. Sejun happily grabbed the defendant's fruit and bit into it. Eating an apple early in the morning is fine. But after eating all the way to the core, I still feel like I can't fill my stomach. I know that. Buy a bag of mixed rice paper and you can probably eat it for 3 meals. But Sejun didn't have it, so he switched to attacking the sweet potato. Why is the sweet potato in his mouth so delicious today? I don't know. It's both crispy and sweet. Normally it's not steamed, it's grilled, and if you're hungry you can eat it raw and it's fine. I have not verified this. If you have eaten raw sweet potatoes, please comment and share your experience. Twice too much, a piece of potato got stuck in my throat. Sejun held the water up and thought he was going to die. After eating and drinking, he was still alive, lying on his back, sticking out his tongue and breathing heavily. Temporarily relieved the cat's hungry stomach to think again. Normally I don't have time to watch the clouds. Look at the scenery. Now I have it and it's 24 hours straight. Sejun wondered if there was a way to leave here before the food ran out. With all this food, Heathy cried when she ate it. But if no one comes to save the situation, it's entirely possible that a dry corpse will turn into a mouthless corpse that smells like green onions. It's unbearable to hear. He stood up with that terrible vision, filled with determination that he had entered the dream tower and could not lie on his back and wait to die like that. Employee Sejun glanced at the apple seed next to him and came up with an idea. Find a damp spot and dig a small hole. Put the apple core down and cover it with soil. Next, add the ends of the green onions to divide the road in two. These 10 stems can be divided into food and plant varieties to create 5 additional Sejun plots for 3 tomatoes and 2 sweet potatoes. Fill in the blanks. Add a little more water and you will immediately feel confident and full of vitality. The future I can cultivate myself is here. While he was excited, suddenly a loud sound came from nowhere, startling Sejun. His brain loads faster than a Formula 1 racing car. This sounds so terrifying, don't say it's a monster attack. When raising your eyes to the ceiling of the cave, he discovered that it was a solar eclipse taking place. The deafening hiss continued to echo in the space, like 2 neighbors turning on the speakers at full volume and singing the song Build the Grave of Love. Causing inner atrium, he thought he knew the place. A shadow hovered overhead with a thud sound. When he looked up again he discovered the silhouette of a dragon flying in the sky. Oh my god, isn't that the black dragon? So beautiful, I can't help but faint. It's so fun. Sejun fell down on the ground, snoring. I didn't know that from the onion root I broke earlier, a strange section would sprout under the moonlight. The haunting alarm rang again, calling Sejun to wake up. It's 6 a.m. in a cave filled with sunlight. He pulled the phone closer to see how long he passed out. His mother was unconscious for 2 days. He stood up so quickly that he suddenly hugged his aching back. Lying in the same position for 48 hours straight, his 26-year-old back became 62. After then though finished, he sat down and then though continued feeling tired and hungry and had no energy at all. But behind him is a row of trees that are both big and long and black. Sejun panicked and backed away to find that it was the green onions he had planted. Why did they grow so fast and they were even taller than him? This super huge version in just 2 days is because the goddess sneaked in when he fainted. It's really nonsense. Sejun thought back calmly. Perhaps it was because of the soil conditions in the tower that the plant sizes were different from those outside. Bent over to find a place to plant sweet potatoes and tomatoes. Unexpectedly, in just 2 days they have sprouted and there are already 52 of them, the size of a small farm. The sprouts were still young so they still enjoyed good sunlight, but the green onions were already in the shade so Sejun decided to cut off the tops. As the size of the onion increases, the onion leaves also become much tougher. It looks like he is pulling up the whole plant, not just the leaves. Get a small pile of grapes like harvesting Sejun rice. Curious about what happens to giant onions. Then he put it in his mouth and took a bite. He opened his mouth and thought he was like a dragon spitting out a pile of fire that tasted like he had just swallowed a bowl of level 7 spicy noodles, causing Sejun to rush to the nearby lake to scoop water and throw it into his mouth. His mouth was swollen but his stomach had no problems at all. Looks like it's still digestible. But eat carefully so your lips don't swell. Taking the onions out to dry, he came back with the cherry tomatoes and sweet potatoes he had saved from the beginning. Today's breakfast only had a tiny tomato, but Sejun was starting to have hope that he wouldn't die here. In this place there is no night and the sun never sets. Only occasionally there is the phenomenon of blue moon, which is a planet that looks like a moon but has a blue color that covers the light for a period of time. But Sejun remembers that it only happened from the 10th floor, while he was clearly in the underground parking lot. But underground, a fiery black dragon appears. It's probably not an illusion. Because I look forward to the day I can step foot into the tower. Will Tremble has learned quite a bit of information about the Phoenix Guild clearing the 37th floor. Many fake awakeners are taking down floors below 30 so information. The 10th floor falls down with skeleton soldiers. Floor 11 to 20 goblins. Up there is a giant blue devil. There are also a few crystal spiders on the head. But no one has mentioned dragons, not even lizards have been mentioned, let alone dragons, but compared to known information. At this moment, Sejun suddenly felt suspicious about the way life was being ignored. What the hell level was he on that no one had ever mentioned? His head suddenly jumped, feeling like he was lost on some level. But the Hunters Guild has never set foot here. It's so lonely, hoo-hoo. I open my eyes and look at the sky. Suddenly, a few drops of something fell on his face, causing the truck to jump up. He was surprised and did not believe that it was rainwater because the old awakeners had said that the weather in the tower was always favorable. There's a shadow of someone passing by here. Sejun was so scared that he thought some monster had just come and drunk him. Who would have thought that it was a white, furry thing shaped like a rabbit? But it's a rabbit with a drooling mouth and water splashes on the surface of the worm cart. It seems like this animal's enzymes must be right. He had never seen such a cute monster, so he kept looking up at it, until it jumped down to the mother of a rabbit bean. That cave, which is over 10 meters high, makes me want to die. It placed its foot on Sejun's bewildered head, then waved around and landed like a genuine ninja. But the owner always uses green onions. The rabbit waddled over there, pointing to a tree pulled up Pippi. It doesn't look like a normal dog at all and it's called an albino Pikachu. You want to eat onions? Sejun walked over and picked off the top of the onion. Resolutely gave it to the albino Pikachu who immediately received it with a happy face. Put it in your mouth and chew the vegetables without feeling spicy at all. If you like, just eat more. There's a lot of anything that contains Sejun onions. He also learned to eat this spicy food and realized that the onions grew so fast that he could harvest them twice a day and still be Oklahoma. After chewing the onion leaves, the albino Pikachu stood up, raised his hands excitedly, thinking he was full and wanted to exercise. It turned out that he was calling someone from the mouth of the cave. Another shadow of a strange rabbit jumped down and landed on the ground. Immediately, the albino Pikachu ran out to greet her. Where did he get the straw hat? This guy is holding a watering can. Soon in front of Sejun there were two albino Pikachu dressed like farmers. It's already strange to see these two rabbits for a moment. He also realized that they seemed to be husband and wife. It seems right, look at the love on their faces. Not to mention this part, we realize that the main characters of the story are not the poor young man Sejun but the Jade Rabbit couple. Sunlight gently penetrates through the cave entrance, shining down on the fresh green onions. Where did the scissors come from? Cut the onion with a thud. Next to it was a watering can, splattering a few small sprouts on the ground. The people who did those things were of course this pair of rabbits. They happily sang and sang, each doing their own thing, looking at each other as if they were the owner of the house. While the real homeowner was huddled in a corner watching the two rabbits work. Sejun started to feel regretful that he was single, like he was coming in here and eating his but wasn't enough. Coming in here, two rabbits left me out, but who's to blame? Yesterday the rabbit couple asked him to let them stay here for a day, plus their eyes sparkled like marbles. How could a normal person like Sejun be able to stand that beauty? It stabbed straight into his heart. Okay, stay as long as you want. I'm a married man, but only when I work do I get to eat. You guys can't just sit around and eat. Sejun asked them to help on the farm even though there was nothing else in this cave besides cutting onions. Before he could finish speaking, the two of them jumped into his arms, two soft balls of fur continuously rubbing on his body, making him about to faint from their cuteness. Now that I've calmed down and thought about it, Sejun feels like he's been psychologically manipulated. These rabbits are so dangerous. He could only let out a breath, accidentally agreed to it, and now he had to accept it if he refused. Suddenly his eyes fell on the farming tools on the two rabbits. It seems like those things are equipment, so the rabbit's water bottle must have an infinite amount of water flowing out. And the apron on the rabbit's wife must be a magical bag like Doraemon. Because it constantly pulls out the necessary agricultural tools for farming. Even the rabbit is equipped from head to toe, but the worm cart doesn't even have shorts on. Do you think I'm angry? I'm in deep depression and the rabbit is constantly waving at me. They had just finished their work, so they wanted to ask him to check that besides the green onions being dried, everything was still the same. The sweet potatoes remained unchanged. Glancing at the tomatoes, Sejun was extremely excited. The buds have gotten a lot bigger. Is it because of the efforts of that pair of rabbits while he was busy admiring the trees? The two rabbits anxiously looked at his eyes as if wanting to say if that was enough for them to stay. Don't slowly turn around, then give a like. Come now, my friends. Just waiting for that, the rabbits jumped up happily. Then excitedly said something to each other that made him understand nothing. Less than a second later, they flashed forward as fast as a flash of lightning, causing rocks and soil to roll up into a circle, causing him to suddenly fall back. When I regained my composure, I saw them huddled in the corner. The female instructs the male rabbit to dig the ground. After a while it dug a hole. The female rabbit happily sang La La the wreath. Then hang it on a wooden board. A rabbit hole immediately appeared and a female rabbit pointed at her new home with a proud look on her face. The male rabbit is tired and panting heavily. Sejun couldn't help but admire the amazing speed of the two girls, specifically the male rabbit. Immediately turned around and complimented him, making him extremely pleased. He smiled brightly like a flower when he was hit by a white arm. The female rabbit's face blushed shyly, causing her to howl, smelling something wrong. Just like a bunch of female rabbits shyly pointed to the rabbit hole. Rabbit's face turned pale and he quickly covered his body, but his wife dragged him away. He painfully begged him for help in vain. He was digging in the ground and couldn't breathe. Now he had no strength to answer the assignment for several days. The rabbit's screams were turned off by the knob behind the door, replaced by the more famous voice of the female rabbit's mother. Sejun on the outside could only laugh. Wishing my brother strength to overcome this ordeal. Tofu is truly a person who can't eat enough for a 26-year-old man to be jealous of a rabbit. Doesn't that sound spicy? However, he immediately regained his optimism and went back to his place to give privacy to meet the new couple. Sejuan leaned down on a pile of green onions and encouraged himself that even though he was alone here, having rabbits for company wasn't so bad, cuddling up. Is there black smoke rising from his armpit, or is it because he has been dirty for a long time that he smells to this extent? It was so hot that I jumped up like a spring with a loud scream. Sejuan fell to the ground and rolled over because of the burning feeling in his back. Only later did he discover that the cause was dry green onions burning. The same rays of sunlight are penetrating the water bottle straight towards the onion. Looking at that scene, an idea suddenly flashed in his mind, causing his intelligence to be activated. Sejuan's face looked exactly like a dog thief trying to steal the homeowner's fat dog. But actually, he felt like he was talking to a survival vlog. In the harsh environment, I was lucky to find green onions and a bottle of water. Thanks to working hard on YouTube while I was outside. He remembered how to use a transparent bottle to make a converging lens to create fire, like those guys who make desert island vlogs show. But reality and imagination were thousands of miles apart. He bent over and dropped the water bottle, wanting to lose his armpits. But only smoke rose, not fire. I got bored and hit the ground, not knowing what step I had done wrong. He let out a frustrated sigh. Yet a tiny fire was kindled in the middle of the pile of onions, making Sejuan's eyes widen in surprise, but it was like being somewhat enlightened. In the rabbit hole, after a fierce fight, the rabbit was told to wither and gasp, leading the batch of rabbits with a satisfied look on their face to crawl out of the nest. I immediately saw Mr. Boss collapsing in front of me, thinking that Mr. Boss was depressed because he had abandoned his rabbit and was extremely worried. When I got closer, I saw him blowing all his breath into the pile of dried onions. Even though he didn't understand what kind of game this was, he offered to help. Sejuan happily agreed immediately. If anything is difficult, 2 rabbits will take care of it. They pressed close to the flickering fire. And he is responsible for shouting and encouraging morale. At the same time, hold up the water bottle so that the light shines through. This rhythmic sequence finally had results. A fire was burning and it was done. Sejuan happily shouted. Now that there is a fire, he can eat and drink boiled food like a human. His eyes glanced over the onion plants behind him. Cut off a few plants to test and see how it goes. The 2 rabbits obediently sat quietly. On one side, I watched him grill onions. Is this okay? The car is shaking the most. I've almost seen it. Come check it out. Quickly peel off all the black parts. Then open your mouth and put the food in your mouth. Just took my first bite. His whole body was shaking so much that the rabbit thought he was poisoned. The sweet bean curd was so sweet, Sejuan's eyes suddenly lit up, exclaiming a sweet taste like sugar that went straight to his brain. An unprecedented explosive flavor made him feel like he was a white horse galloping across the vast green grassland. He used his hands as chewing jaws. He continuously grilled onions and praised them for their deliciousness, causing the rabbit and his wife to also salivate. The male rabbit immediately learned to roast onions from him. I'm half wife and half chewing. Both of them exclaimed that they had never tasted anything so delicious in their lives. Eat more. Sejuan generously told them to make themselves at home. There are no vegetables and they can eat as much as they want. Another day wandering in the Black Tower, but today my stomach is filled with cooked food. Tonight I can sleep well. Okay, the next morning, Sejuan lazily stretched and woke up. Go to the nearby lake. To wash my face like every day. While wiping his face, he happened to look to the side. The garden that was in danger of running just the other day has now been covered with green. Green onions are harvested. Fully irrigated cherry tomatoes. Even the bunch of sweet potatoes that were thought to be dead have pulled out lush green strings. The rabbit couple is quite handsome. Sejuan was extremely pleased with their thoughtfulness, then suddenly remembered last night. After the group was tricked, all 3 made torches from green onions. The rabbit was in charge of the onions and he tied the leaves together and placed them around the cave. There was light so it was easier to travel because the lake was very dark. He also had to place a large torch here. Haven't had time to find a place to put the torch underwater. Suddenly there were small fluctuations. A fish suddenly shot straight at Sejuan's face. Made him extremely panicked, but the elders were there so he was able to dodge aside. The fish and bait suddenly lost momentum and fell to the ground, struggling in Sejuan's surprise. because this is the first time he has seen fish that are attracted to light. It's truly a magic tower. Nothing else is magical. Canada. So in addition to having light, he is now also supplemented with protein to catch the fish struggling on the ground. Roll the onion around and put it on the fire. Sejuan excitedly grilled fish. It had been a long time since he had smelled this rich aroma, making his mouth water constantly. When the fish was cooked, he couldn't wait and scooped out a large piece. It's not fishy at all, it's delicious and it's great. While chewing next to him, there were a few cries of frustration and turned around to see a pair of white rabbits staring at him, pointing at their mouths that were drooling profusely. What the hell, even rabbits eat salty food, so they got angry and nodded repeatedly. Then he suddenly remembered that they were binduong rabbits, not normal rabbits. Life went on peacefully like that until a few days later Dragon Moon appeared again thanks to the Sejuan knowing its cycle was 30 days. To keep track of the date, he used a laptop and a spare battery to charge his phone. But couldn't hold out for long. If we lose this acacia, we will display another acacia. He uses different symbols on the stone to record the number of days lost here. Suddenly, he lived like a prehistoric man for 61 days without electricity or internet, but he was still able to hold on thanks largely to the rabbits' regular schedule. They always go to bed at 7 p.m. and wake up at 5 a.m. so he is never afraid of counting the days wrong. And good news came to the farm a few days ago when the male rabbit opened the door early in the morning. A group of yellow rabbits rushed out. Looking at such adorable mischievous children, he smiled with eyes wide open, wanting to hug them all on the table and pray to see him. 5 leopards immediately jumped forward, causing Sejuan to fall backwards to the ground. But he was extremely happy. The appearance of these cotton balls helped his boring life become happier than ever. Naturally, the addition of a male worker growing vegetables made the tea so much fun. But their 2 elderly grandparents were not so happy. They came out early in the morning and were drowsy. Being a good uncle, he took on the responsibility of babysitting the children so that the rabbits could have breakfast leisurely. Sejuan's 5 round furballs were looking at cherry tomato flowers, but none of them were willing to sit still. The newspaper team excitedly played tag, leaving the uncle sitting on one side laughing haha like an idiot. Take advantage of the cheetahs that are playing well. Sejuan takes advantage of his free time to pollinate the flowers. Using a stick to poke around for a while made his 26-year-old spine want to break in half. Wouldn't it be nice if there were bees here? Short breaths, long sighs, boredom, then have to bend over and continue. While preparing to continue, he saw a prime minister helping to enter the flower. Maybe seeing my uncle working hard, I wanted to help pollinate him with my nose, but my nose was covered in it. He sneezed and fell backwards. Seeing that, he burst out laughing as if he was lucky enough to have an uncle who was worth the money. Laughing and wanting to twist my jaw, I helped him up and scolded him not to do that again. But suddenly his eyes widened in surprise. Fruits like after a period of plowing, cherry tomatoes have produced their first fruits. 1 person and 1 rabbit happily sang and danced in the garden. This is the day before Lao Noyet appeared even though the sunlight was still shining into the cave. But now it's late afternoon. Sejuan hurriedly prepared for the upcoming event to avoid attracting monsters near the cave. He poured water to put out the large fire. Only a tiny bit of fire remained in the crack in the rock. As for the bundle, use a small stone to block it to prevent light from leaking out. He also disguised himself with a pile of onion rolls on his head and he personally knew how different the male lead looked. The rabbit and his wife were also herding the children into the cave. They were all prepared and looked up at the sky. He guessed it was almost time. He immediately told Father Rabbit to close the door carefully. If the brothers survived tonight, they would only be mosquitoes if they saw Lang Noyet again later, right? Sejuan gave a thumbs up while reassuring the rabbits while also reassuring himself. Just a few hours later the warm sunlight disappeared and was replaced by the cold blue moonlight shining down on Lam Noyet officially starting. The chirping sound of insects and the roar of monsters made it impossible for him to sleep until it ended. Sejuan tiredly looked out at the garden even though he carefully hid all the smells with green onions. But he still couldn't feel secure every time he heard a creepy howl echoing from afar. He was trembling again and had chickens and ducks floating all over his body. Let's play again. This time it will end smoothly. While praying sincerely, a loud noise rang out, causing Sejun to freeze. Scared. He looked up at the mouth of the cave. Outside, a fat red foot was thudding to the ground. A large, fat body was walking, causing the trees to fall. After walking for a while, it discovered a tiny cave mouth. Under the blue-gray moonlight, a giant red bear appeared. It stood right in front of the cave mouth, so the shadow is reflected onto the ground. Sejun was surprised and speechless. Left my mother. Looking up worriedly, I saw the angry bear drooling profusely. My limbs felt like they were weak, I couldn't move, my car was shaking, I tried to calm down, I was going to hide before it discovered me. Gently and slowly reach for the backpack. But unfortunately for him, his backpack was not zipped. So the contents immediately fell out, cherry tomatoes and a plastic bottle fell to the ground. Sejun just stood there looking at the pile of junk. Sweat continuously poured out like a shower, my heart pounded slowly. I raised my eyes. Wow! Suddenly, the red bear's hairy face was staring straight into his eyes, causing all the terror inside to burst out into sound in an instant. Sejun widened his eyes and shouted, causing the bear to quickly open his mouth and roar, splashing all his saliva. My feet are cold this trip, everyone. The sun was already shining directly above his head, but the uncle was still sleeping. The little rabbits tried to shake him and pull his mouth, but it didn't work. Mom, I'll wake up later in the car, trembling and talking before I tried to raise my hand to brush it away. The rabbits couldn't let this book title touch a single hair of their child's hair. Daddy Rabbit didn't hesitate to attack first, only to hear a crisp sound of footsteps. Daddy Rabbit calmly gave him a slap, the firefly with his eyes closed, it hurts just looking at it. The mouthworm truck drank without a sound and sat up straight from the sugar cane. He thought he had just returned from death's door. His whole family of rabbits surrounded him. They also thought he was crazy, but he lost his nanny and the lotus. Sejun looked around in bewilderment and saw that the sky was clear and cloudy, only to realize that lamb noyet was finished and he breathed a sigh of relief. Daddy Rabbit let out a cry of agreement, looking very affectionate, not tired like Sejun. Why the hell? Every time lamb noyet takes place, the whole family faints. People feel achy, confused, and bored. Trying to mobilize every neuron to remember what happened last night. From the part our eyes meet, with the bear, to its earth-shattering scream. Then the memory automatically stops and recalls. But that feeling of extreme fear still haunted him, almost becoming a late-night meal for the monster. Seeing the uncle trembling in fear, the cubs immediately jumped up to encourage him. But for some reason, his body still trembled. It turned out that he fainted one night in the dew and caught a cold. When my mother saw that, she immediately ran back to the place where the trick was hidden. Yesterday, she threw in more dried onion leaves and made a big fire. A moment later, the rabbit's mother also brought out a fish for him to eat. When he was tired, his whole body had a piece of fish. As he blew and ate, there were a few handrails around him. All his fatigue seemed to disappear. However, Sejun has a new concern. That monster already knew where it was hiding. I don't know if it will come back or not. Yesterday he was lucky to escape death because the mouth of the cave was too small for him to get through. But what if it was another smaller monster that would have gone to sell? Damn it, the worm car has worked so hard to survive until now, how can it be so easy for a bunch of grandchildren to protect? Looking down at the gnawing fish, he took another mouthful. He decided to eat a lot of food to be healthier. The elders had taught him that in order to regain his moral virtue, he had to have a full stomach to have the strength to fight. While munching on the rabbit, Dad panicked and ran to call Sejun and immediately looked in that direction. Discovered a sparkling blue tomato, thinking he was still in shock after losing consciousness. He quickly ran over to take a look and realized that not only did it have a strange color, but it was also as big as a golf ball. Previously, cherry tomatoes were only so tiny and so similar that they must have only appeared in Binduong. Sejun picked up the tomato to look at it and couldn't help but admire how unique it was. Without waiting for it to fall, Sejun plucked it. While still admiring the size of the eggplant, the system immediately appeared with a notification. Congratulations on completing the mission of harvesting lamb noyet's energy-containing fruit. This is not a window. Star announcement. Sejun was stunned, his mouth wide open, not allowing him to close his beak. The system sent another notification that this wonderful achievement caught the attention of the tower manager. I thought that I would receive a gift or reward that would be very attractive. But the manager showed an unhappy attitude that made him dumbfounded. What's wrong? Who doesn't do anything without being happy? The tower manager immediately explained that he had just discovered that he was an uninvited guest. Thinking of ways to hide his sins. Reading the message, I felt like it was just a mistake that I was here. Sejun frantically installs the system for the past 61 days, he has been miserable surviving in this hellish place, now just 2 mistaken words and it's over. Wait for this guy to come out and then he'll sue everyone in the ward to show their faces. I saw him so ferocious that he waved his hand and punched me. Hello. The system shuts up, made him faint thinking he was too rude. Suddenly, the words tower manager appear on it, awakening the tiger in you. Before I could think about whether I was a kitty or a Mickey Mouse, the green light at the foot of the fantasy stone surged up. As soon as he woke up, the rain turned into a dream and he stuttered, realizing that he had just been upgraded by the tower manager to become a 100% fake awakening. Moreover, the tower manager assigned him a job in person. Sejun excitedly prayed that the lottery would make him a wizard. In response to that strong hope, the tower manager gave him a very related profession. F-class tower farmers don't have any more fireworks for fun at home. So happy, Sejun and the rabbits stood there like statues. This feeling is too much joy, isn't it? Managing an extremely spacious tower with additional benefits when working as a farmer is good health, closeness to nature and points for harvesting agricultural products. Wait, please explain to me again in the status window. Why are you forcing me to be a farmer's son while I'm growing crops? He doesn't know why because it's not dark here so there are no stars. The system runs all the time using information Parker Area 1 tower farmer occupation has no skills. Sejun felt like his blood pressure was about to drop. In his mind, he thought of a dark scenario. The day I returned from this place and was invited to attend, I was deeply dressed in a suit. Theater Awakening announcement host Park Sejun left the tower. Then asked very respectfully what his profession was there. I'm a farmer in the tower. It sounds horrible. Sejun let out a loud scream. Tan, being the president of the Farmers Association, didn't think he was good enough. Holding the blue tomato tightly in his hand, anger flared up, causing Sejun to try to trample the fruit. It wasn't until he saw the faces of the rabbit family looking up at him that he stopped. Our whole family looked at Sejun with surprised eyes. He took a few steps back, panting, as soon as he realized he was scaring them. The fire on the pile of dried onions was still burning brightly. The onion stalks he planted with the rabbit house were still swaying in the sunlight. Suddenly, Sejun felt that his hand holding the tomato was no longer strong. Because everyone worked very hard to grow this. Sejun smiled with relief and decided he would accept being a farmer. From the surface of the tomato, a bright circle jumped out like an electronic pattern. Again, the information panel suddenly appeared in front of Sejun. Said that this is an Ezo magic cherry tomato imbued with Lam Noyet's energy, helping to increase experience points by 0.05, going from one surprise to another. Sejun couldn't believe that this small fruit was actually an item. Although the increase in experience points is not much, it still brings Sejun a little joy. See him and his farm clearly inside the glass ball. Someone is not very happy and grits their teeth. Sejun doesn't know anything and is busy holding hands and holding rabbits' feet, singing and dancing. This system is best at finding trouble when people are happy. Suddenly gave him a mission to provide magic tomatoes to the building manager. The reward is that if the farmer's skills don't produce tomatoes, he will die. The mission asked to kill him. It's so weird that seeing the word death makes you see gender twists. It's called a mission but it has a threat effect, right? If you want to eat meat, you won't say it like that. Your father won't let you see how simple human life is. He shook his head vigorously with an expression of disapproval. But the lettering is orthopedic on the window. Still the same. Causing the steadfastness to slowly wither until it disappears. Sejun bowed his head to meet me 90 degrees and respectfully offered the tomato because he still wanted to live. The item disappeared right from his hand. Mark task completed. The window has changed to accept quests. He was tense and suddenly it was so simple that Sejun was caught off guard. He happily clicked on the word accept. Obtaining the level 1 sowing farmer quality skill slightly increases the chance of germination when a seed is planted. I wanted to curse the bitch so much but Sejun's heart died a little. He was a farmer, not an armless farmer, but he had the skills to sow seeds. If that's the case, why don't you increase it a bit and give it a gift? Well, I have to accept it. So, the next day, he harvested green onions again. Sejun held the green onion torch, groped to the lake in the cave. Attract the fish and jump up as soon as they see the light. Take a blow that brings music to the ground. Think of a carp and a catfish. Turns out this is a piranha. But it's very strange. Since awakening, Sejun can receive experience points. For each fish he kills, he gets 2 points, which in turn is the only source of protein in the cave. Now that I've reached level 2, I'll slow down a bit. The lake isn't that big. If he keeps trying to score, these fish will go extinct. Bring the fish that has been grilled and fragrant. Sejun excitedly called the kids to come eat with him. The little rabbits were a little older and could eat a whole fish by themselves, making him busy distributing them. The rabbit and his wife really like this dish. They eat deliciously. Since becoming awakened, old Sejun has seen information that they are not albino Pikachu. Simply a white rabbit doing farming. Is it possible that this species only specializes in farming and not fighting, so it awakens and specializes in clearing floors without even knowing it? Unable to talk to them, the car was shaking and couldn't ask questions. He thought the couple had lost their farm for some reason and wandered around until they accidentally found him and his prehistoric cave. When everyone finished eating, Sejun excitedly stood up and said that today was an important day for the farm. Was responded to by the rabbit family at the moment everyone was waiting for. The cherry tomato tree is ripe and bears fruit while hanging on the branch, making everyone's eyes widen and look at it with admiration. It took so long to plant and bathe until the day of harvest. Sejun naturally felt moved. Sejun held out his hand ready to collect. But when I almost touched it, I found my hand shaking indescribably. The rabbits looked on nervously. He himself felt his heart pounding. I'm afraid that if I accidentally touch my 2 fingers, they will fall off. Holding up the precious tomato, the group admired this delicious, juicy red ripeness. The information window pops up to announce 10 additional experience points for harvesting ripe tomatoes. It turns out that it is not only an agricultural product but also an item with its own information. Releasing fat and increasing 0.1 experience points for the eater are its biggest uses. Even though it increases a few points, it allows you to accumulate 10 points to get the number 1. Sejun started thinking about picking other tomatoes to accumulate points. Second result. Then the third result. Rabbit's house let him crush the tomatoes. Let's go play together in the garden for a while. After a while, June also harvested quite a few tomatoes, enough to get to level 4. Eagerly bringing one to my mouth to taste it, I made sure it was hot. Sejun heard some noise next to him. And who is the planted rabbit, and the whole family is signaling to him that sharing a little food is not something that this human did alone, so he wants to choose. Sejun showed off his face and turned around to offer it to them and had to beg him not to sulk anymore. It sounds like a cowardly child comforting the emperor. Only when everyone had a piece in his hand did he dare to prepare to put it in his mouth to eat. The cherry tomato looks quite large compared to the rabbit family. As for Sejun, he's just a ball in the basket. Chewing in your mouth for just a few seconds. His eyes opened in surprise and recognition. I'm lying on the green grass. A streak of yellow light streaked across the expanse of the sky. The flower-shaped explosion attracted Sejun to sit up, look more clearly, and felt in my throat the fresh taste of grass. Blends sweet and sour flavors like a summer fireworks ceremony. It feels so damn good. Sejun's tears suddenly flowed down. But in the rabbit's eyes, he's like a guy with a cold. If they could talk, they would probably ask if this tomato contained millet, but this guy ate it and said it smelled like grass. Harvest so many tomatoes that you can't eat them all. The rabbit family must secretly prepare a stew to reserve with freshly cut green onions. The little rabbits each helped their parents. It looked a bit overwhelming for the size, but Sejun lay there realizing they were much bigger. The white rabbit's children are hardworking farmers. Let me see, he just now went to bed and got ready to sleep, then pulled up his blindfold to block out the light. Sejun just laid down and fell asleep. I said there's a problem with this system, but it just pops out at strange times. Sejun didn't know anything. He turned over and snored loudly, poking at the dirty window. Turn on the Nokia remix alarm ringing loudly. The tower manager suddenly asked for all the tomatoes. His hand clicked to receive the gift without being excited at all. But as expected, if you don't love it, don't give up hope. There will be so much fruit for the farmer to harvest. He swallowed back his tears. But the next morning I woke up. I just found this skill to be very useful. Letting him pick something that isn't ripe enough turns into a 9 because he has this skill, like the golden hand in the village picking tomatoes. From then on, his points increased rapidly and he no longer had to wait for the tomatoes to ripen to pick them. Just as he was about to rest, the system jumped out on behalf of the tower manager and asked for 200 tomatoes. I knew this day would come and this time there was no reward. What a robbery. With an unwilling face, Sejun offered a few dozen fruits to the tower manager for temporary use along with a few apologies. But that's just the beginning. If there's a mistake, he'll ask for 250 more. If God tries to avoid the food, if you accidentally hit it, ask for 300 balls. On a beautiful day at the end of summer, 500 fruits were not given, only dead water and nothing else. Look at the number 500 Kia. Sejun felt a twitch near his head and he uttered the exact word no. The tower manager did not expect that there would be a guy who dared to refuse his mission. It's the first time I've seen rebellion like that. If you miss the rebellion, then you'll have to go fuck yourself with a system that has a garden smaller than your nostril and demand 500 tomatoes at a time to be the landowner to take charge of the peasants. If he can argue, the system can argue. He said the tower management doesn't care about the farmer's problem of planting and harvesting, so stop whining and deliver the tomatoes quickly. Sejun curled his lips and reminded the manager that it was his problem. Holding the green onions tightly in his hand, his voice trembled as he said that these fruits were the fruits of his hard work. If the manager cared, he probably wouldn't have insisted so much and told Sejun that he was making a big deal out of something small. Officially unleashed the madness inside him. The guy's face said shit. Oh fuck, this guy is in my tower. Sejun fed his manager a mouthful of avocado. Was it okay? Bring it up. He turned his back and went to harvest green onions with the bunny family. Ignore the third system board, the game chew over and over, and accept the penalty of refusing the mission, which awaits death. After grilling fish and then sharing tomatoes, the system was pumped several times and had to hold the window close to his face to attract Sejun's attention. In exchange for his grumpy look, the tower manager wondered about what the farmers were doing. That's right, so what else was he complaining about? The manager was the manager of the farmers, like he was just following instructions. Sejun was bored and tired of arguing. His face was as black as the bottom of a pot, muttering to me to do all of this without acknowledging my ability to give a reward as small as a grape seed while asking for so much. When he looked up, his eyes were filled with tears and his voice trembled as he criticized the manager. That's so bad. The manager on the other side of the globe, hearing the farmers curse him, was both painful and shocking. He gritted his teeth, thinking, preparing to curse. So why does it make sense? I'll just ignore the word L. I haven't seen the word error yet. Sejun's face was eating cherry tomatoes with a happy expression on the globe. As a manager, I swallowed and cursed him and slapped him. If you don't do your duty, don't blame the sea water for it. If you ask properly, give me these 5 fruits. Take them and let me rest a bit. Ask for more. He won't give them to you. The rabbit's house doesn't even have anything to eat, so it has to be saved from time to time. The cherry tomatoes disappeared from Sejun's hand. The tower manager accepted, but he still bitterly told me to forgive you this time, okay? The window disappeared instantly. Sejun had a faint smile on his lips. The building manager came down like this as if he wanted to apologize to him. Suddenly I think he's cute, but he's not cute with volley. On the 91st day since the car jumped into the traditional black hole, he had sex for the 4th time. The dim light of the eclipse shines down on the crops. While Sejun was covering himself with a green onion shirt and sitting close to the cave cliff. He was worried that he would have to hear the terrible hissing sound like the previous times because his experience points were not high enough, so he tried to eat tomatoes to increase his points. But Sejun still felt scared. He kept praying for the dark time to pass quickly. Suddenly, blue light shined down and sparkled on the leaves. Sejun paid attention for a moment. Immediately realized there was a strange sign. The eclipse light was as usual, but it was as if it was penetrating the green tomato on the branch. It's still a green tomato, but it's green like poisoned lips. The entire tree has only one sparkling blue fruit. Even though Sejun was confused, he was also aware that he had to pick it up right away. He also noticed the light shining down on the sweet potato leaves left on the ground. Looks like there was some arrangement. Sejun found himself having a strange idea in his head. Then he stood up cautiously. Then ran towards the vegetable garden to verify his thoughts. Using his bare hands, he faintly traced the red leaves on the ground below the potato field. Until you can see the whole of below. The result was as expected, but Sejun was still unexpectedly happy. Sweet potatoes absorb energy from clear blue light, giving them a delicious taste and the effect of enhancing physical strength. This tuber is ranked E. Storage time is up to 30 days and slightly increases experience points. By pulling up the sweet potato root, the system pops out a chimpanzee announcing the leveling up of harvesting skills. Add 50 experience points. In addition, he glanced at the green tomato on the branch, reached out and fainted, feeling an unbelievable rush. He held 2 green fruits in both hands as if he had been poisoned, but Sejun's heart was indescribably happy because he was afraid that he would be too happy to bear it. The mission window immediately jumped out and it was the tower manager who saw the delicious food and insisted on it. This time he asked for both sweet potatoes and green tomatoes. If he didn't give them, he threatened to kill one of each and beeped. Sejun quickly presented the newly harvested red tomatoes today to his father. Last time, please pray for him to stop pulling his hair. Supposedly, the illiterate manager immediately refused to write. Sejun was so stubborn that he refused to hand over every piece to the tower manager. Finally agreed to go away so he could enjoy the time of harvesting these 2 green fruits. Thinking too much gives me a headache. Sejun threw the tomato into his mouth. Chew slowly. His body trembled as if he was holding back. Because inside his mouth, it was like there were dozens of fireworks going off continuously. Gaining half an experience point is as easy as a little tomato. This gave the effect and flavor that made his armpit twitch. Sejun quickly wrapped the sweet potato in onion fat and threw it into the fire. Even without foil, grilling this way still gives you the feeling of waiting for the food to be cooked. How delicious it is. The next morning when Lamb Noyet disappeared, rabbit cave door opens. The whole rabbit family was in a strange stir. When I saw Sejun, it seemed like he was already waiting. He put the hot potato on a leaf and introduced it to the whole rabbit family. Even though they haven't opened the leaves yet, they can already smell the sweet aroma emanating from inside, making their mouth water. Suddenly the rabbit jumped out to stop his wife and the children. He pointed at Tu Thursday and said pie pie, something which made the whole family look a bit sad but still accepted. Sejun realized what he meant, so he let this human eat because there was only 1 tuber. It made him so emotional that he almost fainted. He reached out and stroked the rabbit's head, feeling deeply moved by its feelings for him. But it was actually a cold because he secretly ate alone last night. Slowly peel off the purple skin. Sejun brought it up to his mouth and took a big bite. Then he opened his throat and spit out the entire root. It was so hot that his tongue died. Then Sejun held his throat and screamed. While the whole rabbit family only paid attention to the sweet potato he had just spit out. Husband rabbit can't ignore it anymore. I quickly wanted to grab the potato, but there were 5 other yellow hands that were faster. Her children each have different colors, beaks and mouths, while her father stands there longingly. Who would have thought that as soon as the potato touched their tongues, they couldn't stand the heat and opened their mouths to breathe continuously. Wherever it was, the 2 wires were spit out on the ground. Sejun couldn't eat the herd. The baby rabbit burned his mouth and cried bitterly. The planted rabbit couldn't get a single piece into his mouth. Disappointed 10 points, no but. So the precious sweet potato suddenly turned into trash lying on the ground because it was too hot and no one could eat it. The next morning Sejun announced that from today he would plant sweet potato sprouts. Right when the rabbits were chewing on leaky sweet potato sprouts, they looked up at Sejun in confusion and asked if this guy wanted to plant what he was chewing on. That's right, he pointed his finger at them and banned them from eating sweet potato sprouts from now on. Shocking news, this rabbits are so crazy that they remember eating sweet potato sprouts with a scoop, knowing that it's like that, and then they're banned. They either climbed onto Sejuan's body to express their protest, or lie on the ground and get angry. Each person has their own style, but in general, Sejuan can't take it all and has to offer something else in exchange. This is a super special snack, guys. The baby rabbits have the same look as their mother. As soon as she hears about lemon snacks, she immediately drools all over her skin and her sparkling eyes are so cute. Then let's get to work. He ordered the rabbits to each carry a sweet potato sprout in each hand and go to work. Passing by where the mother rabbit was cutting onions, the worm told her to leave a very large plant to harvest green onion flowers later. He is aiming to plant seeds instead of planting existing plants to see if he can activate any interesting points. On the other side, the rabbits worked at full capacity thanks to their ability to touch their armpits. One of them dug a hole. One of them picked up a seedling and placed the roots in it. Fill it with soil and you're done. The 5 little rabbits added the father rabbit to water them, and soon there were nearly 10 fresh green sprouts planted. Attractive. One of the kids couldn't help but secretly chew it once. His father hit him on the head and spit it out immediately. Sejuan's cherry tomatoes bear more and more fruit each time until they can bear the whole branch. He harvested hundreds of fruits, increasing his experience points and the level of the tower's residents from F-level farmers to E. Bring the tomatoes near the fire. Sejuan finds a friend to sit and make snacks for the little farmers over there. The tower manager ignored him and opened his eyes to see what he was doing. But when Sejuan turned around, he disappeared. More like stalking others to do bad things than being curious. Waved to the kids to come back for a break. Sejuan excitedly introduces delicious, armpit-tingling grilled cherry tomatoes, meticulously placed on piranha fish bones to make this fruit sweeter and softer. Each child gets a tree, and the rabbits' parents also get a share. Their eyes were so bright with excitement that they immediately decided to put them in their sockets. Sejuan had to stand up and tell him to be careful. Blow away or your mouth will burn. In his hand, he also had a skewer to look at the sweet potato sprouts that had been successfully planted. He used one hand to dig up a mature tree. Pulled out a dangling trellis of sweet potatoes. Is a sweet potato that has the strength of Arab, slightly increases physical strength and has the effect of reducing fat. Each sweet potato plant gives him 5 tubers. In total, there are 15 bulbs here that are of better quality than the first harvest. Look at the forgotten sprouts on the ground. Sejuan quickly replanted it without wasting any plants. Just finished cultivating the land. The system pops up to indicate successful seeding action. This means that Sejuan needs to plant them all himself to upgrade his skill points. He raised his hand to signal the children to stop working so they could do it themselves to earn some points. In the tower's study room, a large body waited among the piles of books, its head buried in the place where the firelight bounced off. Someone's black hand covered with sharp nails was holding a skewer with up to 20 cherry tomatoes stuck in it. Heating it over a blazing fire. Then put it in your mouth. Eating almost all of it in one go, your mouth is very enjoyable. But spit it out immediately because these tomatoes are too bitter. The dragon felt uncomfortable for a while, then realized that it was bitter because the outer shell was burned and had to be eaten a little longer for the inside to taste sweet. After eating, he returned to the ball to see what the farmer was doing. I saw that Sejuan wasn't working hard but was lying around eating sweet potatoes with the baby rabbit. No, there's no way those guys can eat sweet potatoes without me. The great black dragon didn't say his name, but I thought he was toothless in the dragon training secret. I thought he wouldn't run around hiding from the gangsters anymore but instead ran through this tower to become a manager specializing in stealing fruits and vegetables from Sejuan and his young children. As expected, it's too spicy because I wasn't invited to eat together. The subsystem window was suddenly added. The mission is to give a roasted sweet potato to the tower manager and the reward for not refusing is death. Suddenly, the piece of sweet potato I was chewing felt less delicious. Sejuan decided to stuff butter into the manager's mouth. Why didn't you say it from the beginning? Now there's still a bulb that's threatening you. Otherwise, give the reward and Sejuan will think again. A few seconds later, the A-rank mission notification window was activated with the content that the roasted sweet potato stem received a bonus skill related to the profession. Is it cute to say that? Sejuan raised his hand to choose. Open the mission gift to receive a level 1 seed store that allows you to buy one product every 30 days. He jumped up and down and now realized that it was a bit similar to the store on the first floor that the awakened people often talked about. Sejun activates the shop skill immediately, opening the door to an empty history. Suddenly I remembered that to buy things, I had to have money. He was like a sincere farmer asking if he didn't have money to exchange for fruits and vegetables. The system knows that no matter how old a farmer hack is, Sejun is still poor. Should give him a free tower coin. I thought my eyes were going crazy, but Sejun was extremely surprised that the store system was so kind. On the external market, the price of one thap coin is 1 million. The system says that every day there are 3 types of random seeds at the current level. Sejun can buy one type to plant. Even though there is only one type, there are up to 1,000 seeds, which sounds big. But the market price is expensive. He thought for a long time and decided to eliminate the 2 options of red pepper and cabbage because they were not very stable. So what's left is the carrot seed. The rabbit family heard the word carrot and immediately turned their heads to look at Sejun. He realized they were trying to say something to him. Then I looked again and discovered that it seemed to be about carrot seeds. The rabbit couple's eyes were bright and drooling. He leaned closer and repeated the key word carrot, making the whole family nod vigorously. No matter how many times I mentioned it, their ears waved in response. There were so many of them that the rabbit looked at the fox and jumped in and kicked him in the face to stop the mess. Sejun followed their wishes and bought 1,000 carrot seeds, unlocked purchase achievements, received 1 accumulated point, and for every 100 accumulated points, he can change his turn to level up once. The seeds are contained in a genuine-looking red bag. Fell into Sejun's hands in the admiration of the entire rabbit family. The talkative tower manager jumped out from somewhere and said he thought the transaction with the store was okay. Surely he knew there was going to be a new item to loot, right? That's it. Anyway, there are up to 1,000 worm cart seeds and the rabbit family immediately starts husbanding. Above the mouth of the cave, where the grass and trees grow luxuriantly, a brown bee is flying, not knowing where it is going. But seeing the whole crowd chanting at such a multi-level level, she stopped to look to see if anyone had the itch to quote a comment. There are 2 beautiful buttocks shaking. Belongs to the rabbit couple who are happily staring at the carrot seed fat that has just been filled with soil. By the way, they also howled at each other, which made Sejun feel a bit strange. Even though we've planted the seeds for a few days, nothing has sprouted yet. Why are they still lying there so addicted to carrots? Never mind his business, it's time to rest. Get up in the afternoon to pollinate flowers and cut onions. Suddenly, next to Sejun's hand, there was the buzzing sound of a winged species. He raised his hand to wave it away, but as soon as he stopped, it flew next to his ear again. Damn, why are there suddenly insects here disrupting sleep? In front of him was a large, fuzzy brown bee with 2 eyes staring. The little rabbit in Sejun's lap also looked up at the creature of another species and called Pai Pai. He stammered, surely this winged insect is the tower's monster, but every one of them is so cute. Sejun decided to get closer to the bee and take a closer look. The system immediately jumped out and said that this was a poisonous bee. But why didn't you say it from the beginning? Sejun quickly closed his ass and dodged it. He signaled SOS to ask if this group of rabbits was dangerous or not. I saw both their father and mother run away with their 5 children. Damn you bunny rabbits, how dare you leave me alone to be eaten by bees to prove that his fear is just an exaggeration. The tower manager told him that this is a type of poisonous bee that specializes in stinging and then eating its prey. What kind of bee eats meat and has such a deceiving interface? Sejun was so scared that he waved his hand to chase the bee away, but it got closer and closer. In his eyes, this bee was like an assassin waiting to eat him. His legs were so soft his skin crawled on the ground. My hand picked up something when I picked up or immediately threw it at the bee, not knowing whether the law would kill it or spare his life. But when she saw the tomato branch full of yellow flowers, the brown bee stopped and stared at it, turned his attention to the flowers and didn't pay attention to the cowardly farmer anymore. After a while, Sejun dared to open his eyes and take a look. Discovered the brown bee pressing her head into the flowers with excitement. When it raised its face, it looked like it had just eaten after a full meal in a gentle and scary manner. Sejuan asked through the system window without a trace of trust, so it was a predator at noon. He spoke and didn't dare Ton Min to make a sound. Suddenly remembered that bees can pollinate. Sejuan stopped by the brown bee and whispered. I have a whole field of flowers, you can go in and eat them if you like. It turns out this bee was stalking an entire field of blooming tomato flowers, but it kept waiting for Sejuan to circle around. When invited, I'm excited and enjoy it. So in a stroke of luck, the worm cart suddenly lost his job of pollinating, which he had to do manually by poking with a stick. Now that he has time to use the car, he turns around and snatches away the scared rabbit family that left him alone, and now he's back to being small. Looking at something, I don't know. They tried all sorts of tricks to please, especially this planted rabbit, which Tao Mai was afraid of. The brown bee seemed to have finished building the nectar and flew toward Sejuan, but he was still quite panicked. He gradually retreated, afraid that it would change its mind about killing him. The brown bee just landed on Sejuan's white shirt that changed color. Stretch out your chubby body. Then I woke up from a nap on his stomach. Fat guys tend to get sleepy. That's fine as long as you don't turn around and let him log out, then it's fine. Time just flew by as Sejuan's tomato fields bore fruit evenly. On the wall in the cave, there are already 120 counting lines. Sejuan still enjoys gardening with his rabbit family. Every day is like cutting leaves to water the plants. He works hard, but the kids who don't have any work are running around. It's true that children are supposed to have fun like that, right? Sejuan is now like an old grandfather watching children playing in the yard. Ms. Ong had a habit of landing on him every time she finished sucking honey. He's been at Sejuan's prehistoric cave for a few weeks. Comes to work in the morning and takes off into the forest in the evening. Sejuan's farm is expanding day by day. They all live together in harmony. Maybe this brown bee doesn't spend time with the rabbits anymore and prefers being here. Sejuan also likes it. I like it best when it releases honey like this. Create a super delicious honey-soaked barrow onion dish. His rabbits are so crazy that they don't know if tomorrow they will get carrots dipped in honey, which food they love more than the worm cart. As they chewed on onions soaked in honey, they thought excitedly. At first, they were afraid that this guy would do it to them. Unexpectedly, thanks to it, his garden expanded and he could also harvest honey. The status window popped out right when he was happily looking forward to the day he would be bathed in honey. But when Sejuan turned around, it suddenly disappeared. I didn't pay much attention because I was so used to the flashing style of Sejuan Tower's manager that he turned his attention to his wall calendar. It's almost the year of the moon. Thinking back to the day that Bear came to say hello, I was still scared to death. Sejuan could only pray that he could survive this python. 121st day before the 3 stars appear. Sejuan gathered a bag full of cherry tomatoes. With clothes like guerrilla soldiers, he prepared everything for the eclipse day. On the other side, the rabbit family was in a strange commotion, looking like everyone seemed more worried than before. Sejuan stood up, holding a basket of cherry tomatoes, intending to herd them into the house. Suddenly I saw the whole family hugging each other passionately. What kind of scene is this to prepare your children to study abroad? Sejuan looked so long that he couldn't understand anything. Saw the rabbit couple leaving their 5 yellow-haired children there. Run at full speed back to the cave. Ignoring the human farmer, he stuttered and couldn't breathe. When they reached the door, they turned around and raised their hands to say hello. The bee slammed the door and locked it for prestige. Damn, what is that? Why did you and your husband leave your child at the market? The solar eclipse is coming. Sejuan just finished his sentence. The 3 stars have pinched to cover the sunlight, blaming the dim blue light on him. Suddenly, Saw felt his whole body was cold and sweating. As soon as Sejuan turned around, he saw a group of yellow-haired rabbits that looked like athletes. Their eyes are red, their mouths are full of fangs, and their bodies are swollen and roar loudly as if they are thirsty for blood. Is it time to send out the SOS signal? Sejuan's scalp feels gradually twitching. The lovely golden feather had drifted into a dirty place that was easy to hide. While Sejuan was about to escape and run away, the crowd suddenly glowed like a new toy amidst blinding light. Their fur turns pure white, thickened, and all muscle strength disappeared. Terra unexpectedly, the 5 rabbit brothers appeared with a new look. Are all albino Pikachu? Except for this one black one that he calls a squid rabbit. This guy is from the neighbor's family or something. I don't have to say the car. As if I wanted to be so cruel I couldn't put it into words. Turns out this is a sign of maturity and a change in hair color. Why? They gathered at the foot of the car and made cute pee-pee sounds as if showing off to him that this was the 5th time since they were born to Long Noyet. The car trembled curiously and came closer to see them more clearly. Suddenly he covered his face and sobbed, thinking that something had happened to you guys just now, but the rabbits looked at him. He was stiff and stiff. Oh, this guy, besides being shy, is also a crybaby. The black rabbit next to him tried to comfort him and was picked up by the bed cart and grabbed his cheek. It was so cute that the jackfruit cat wanted to kiss it too when Lao Noyet just moved out of the sun. The rabbit couple opened the door and walked out with cheerful faces. I saw Sejuan and his children sitting next to the fire. The whole family hugged each other very happily. It seemed like Rabbit's parents knew about this and only Sejuan was fooled. Suddenly a baby rabbit raised its hand in the air. This one resembled the albino Pikachu the most. Suddenly, there was the sound of Doraemon shoveling the ground. Sejuan looked like he wanted to cross his eyes. On their hands, everyone has the farmer rabbit information displayed with its own farming cluster. It turns out that these rabbits all have the ability to summon items when they grow up for each individual to use. Even Sejuan can't borrow it for temporary use. What about this neighbor's son? She's so small, it's like she's waiting for Sejuan to ask. It proudly dropped something shining in the shape of a hammer. It's true that a real hammer is also a big one. Sejuan didn't understand why this squid rabbit brought out a steak hammer or something. He proudly hung the hammer on his shoulder as if showing off that he had grown up. Suddenly Sejuan bent down close to the rabbit to look closely at the information sheet that was different from the rest. Here say it is the Black Rabbit Warrior. So that's right, the neighbor's son. His parents are farmers, his siblings are farmers. His hair color is different. He specializes in fighting. Happened a few days later. As usual, the bunnies have enough farming tools to do special farming work like their parents. They look very professional. The rabbit busily pushed the cherry tomatoes to Sejuan to sort and store. Just a few days ago, they were like a bunch of worms noisily running around the garden. Everyone is really an adult now. It's so touching. But the brothers and sisters were working so hard that he turned back to look at the squid lying on the ground. Even though this guy is a warrior rabbit, he still looks useless. No matter what, I have to say it again and again. Where can I get anything in here for a fight? There's nothing destructive that needs to be staked. Thinking about finding a job for squid. It waved its 2 agile scaly ears, then carried the hammer and invited Sejuan to follow him to the lake in the cave. He thought that hunting was also a form of fighting that could be worked together. Heated the new torch twice. The ferocious piranha jumped up to test its new hammer. Revealing a warrior looked like a son of the family. The squid swung the hammer and gave a direct blow to the fish. Hit it hard against the cave wall like someone dropped a bomb. The squid landed majestically like a true warrior while Sejuan twisted his face as he watched the slimy fish slide down. This black rabbit didn't know what he was doing and quickly turned around and gave a like to the human hero. But Sejuan is so fucking stupid that he doesn't even know me. Minced fish dish is served. In the quiet atmosphere of the whole family, the squid noticed the attitude of the brothers waiting. So he felt completely down. Sejuan had to comfort him a few times. From then on, the rabbits became more familiar with their work than fishing, and became much more familiar with their work than before from day 125. The reopened seed shop was able to buy new products and still allowed Sejuan to choose a variety like before. There are still 3 options but the number has clearly decreased. 10 watermelon seeds for 5 coins, the tower of 50 pumpkin seeds for 1 coin or 200 corn seeds for half a coin is no longer a discount for 1,000 seeds. Sejuan was clearly surprised and didn't expect the system to sell seeds like this month. Also at 1/H now there is only 0.9 coins. Tower has no choice but corn seeds. An anxiety creeps into him. He has been here for more than 4 months and has no way to earn money. Other old awakened people earn money by fighting monsters and suppressing riots in the tower floors. Even though they have to share it with their teammates, it's still more than what Sejuan can earn. The second way is to hunt monsters and sell their bodies to the merchants on the first floor. The third way to make money is to complete quests and receive rewards, but managing his tower is exactly the opposite of what his teacher taught. During the exam, there are no things that require one thing after another. Without threatening to kill him, Sejuan still raised his head and asked if there was any mission with a reward in tower money, so quickly a window appeared. I don't understand what kind of money you ask. When you get older, the tower manager will automatically give it to you. Sejuan can tell you he's already 26 years old and not considered an adult. How old is he after the tower manager? Of course, the Black Dragon did not reveal his age, only saying that when Sejuan was 300 years old, he would receive the money. Sejuan can put it simply, he is a human being who knows how to sweat and is not a monster, so he wants to live to that age. But if the tower manager gives him money after 274 years, who will be able to use his life? Then who will he marry to breed when he has only been around vegetables and fruits for hundreds of days, and the rabbits see that he is so right that he can't argue with the standard card playing system, right away. Sejuan poured over and had to accept the tower manager's personality like that. Now he had to go back to choosing seeds. Sejuan sounds like he can only choose the corn kernels and try to think of the scenario where he searches and bakes and uses flour to make bread blah blah. Ostrich-type congratulation system. Then he saw the red bag in his hand. Poured out exactly 200 seeds, not too much, not too little, but it still looks like a good product. First, we should encourage each other. The rabbits were very happy and excited when they saw there was food. After all, in their eyes, Sejuan was also the one providing the food. Before that, he had to eat something. His stomach was growling loudly. I really admire Sejuan, staying in a cave for 125 days and only eating vegetables and fish. There was a new soldier who specialized in Sejuan fishing, and the whole rabbit family had a full meal that they couldn't finish, holding their stomachs in contentment sitting around the fire. Where did the honeybees come from and say hello for an hour? There have been more and more of them in the cave lately, but Sejuan doesn't care much. It's nice to have it here rubbing against his cheeks. Suddenly, her two antennae pointed in one direction. It soared to the mouth of the cave without saying a word. The squid rabbit was also alert and grabbed his warrior's hammer just in time for Sejuan to notice something jumping right at the mouth of the cave. Its two hands look like a cat. Its voice is very confused. I won't do anything. I hope everyone will calm down. Don't misunderstand. I'm not a shameless cat stealing food. The rabbits and honey bees looked very alert. Sejuan was also startled and asked what you were doing. He was so nervous that he forgot this cat could talk instead of meowing. Instead of answer, it jumped down into the cave and landed majestically on the ground right in front of it. Then he parted his pink hands and greeted Sejuan very professionally. Are you a Park Sejuan customer? Its appearance resembles Puss in Boots. But he was barefoot, and it was important to repeat 7,749 times that he was an orange cat. Merchants behind or looking sad in front of the wanderers rumored that false awakeners will meet merchants when they climb to the top of the tower, but there are no stories that say cats can also do this job. Moreover, everyone, look at that photo's round eyes and his soft, fat cheeks. But the most fatal thing is that mangosteen foot. Oh my god, it's so cute. How can it be? His chest was pounding non-stop, as if Sejuan was about to have a heart attack. But he was still alert enough to guess that the fat furball was definitely a scammer. Seeing that this car was so infatuated with him, he happily called right away. The car is shaking, are you drunk and shaking? He had to put his hands on his hips and clear his throat a few times to show that I don't care. Quick bowed extremely professionally. Heard that a rookie had made a deal with the seed shop, so he came here to build hello and offer some good deals. While talking about tangerines, he rummaged through his bag and boasted that it had a lot of good things, making Sejuan excited to wait and see. You haven't seen it yet, but you've heard the cat's fat belly make a fierce growling sound. Now, where is the image of a cool merchant in front of customers? Tangerine scratched his head and quickly apologized to Sejuan and explained that he hadn't eaten anything all day, that's why he was like this. Sejuan was dumbfounded and looked at the pitiful cat who was laughing haha. Suddenly he flashed a smile that stretched from ear to ear, looking like he couldn't help but be determined, right? The merchant cat, hearing that, shyly turned his eyes sparkling with tears. What caught my eye was a huge grilled fish and the customer's smiling face. The fragrant smell and the evenly burned golden skin makes tangerines so excited that they turn their claws and saliva continuously flows. But not even a few seconds later, he quickly worried that his mouth was addicted, but he was afraid to say that he couldn't eat the customer's food. Don't you really want to eat it? Sejun comes closer to you. Tangerine holds the fish close to his face. It's delicious and tempting. The fish is both soft and fat. If you don't eat it, it's a waste of your life. Oh my God, the wonderful taste just hangs on the tip of my nose, causing saliva to secrete profusely. After that, only a distorted sound and the sound of chewing could be heard. I'm so full, holding a fish bone and deciding to lie down on my stomach. Licking my lips. Sejun sat next to him and said that he must be very hungry because the other day he had 5 grilled fish that were fish. What's wrong with the cat? Tangerine immediately stood up and bowed his head in thanks, not knowing how to repay the good God, but he just smiled happily and said it was nothing. What a kind, sweet, and cheerful man, rummaging through his pockets and trying to sell items to get some extra money from him. I'm a bit big this trip. Haha. Not Nam Dong Thap Sejun, radiantly open your hand and ask for money for some grilled fish. Tangerine angrily ruffled all his feathers and exclaimed that it's not free. Why is nothing in this world free? Sejun jumped back happily. Then he opened his mouth and threatened the person who wanted to finish eating and leave. Why don't you try looking around? Tangerine worriedly glanced sideways and looked up and saw a group of rabbits punching their hands and feet, and there was a black rabbit holding a hammer, feeling angry and wet with tears in his eyes, pressing payment to the robbers. Then she collapsed and fell on the spot while Sejun and his accomplices were happy because they easily cheated money from the stupid cat. Tangerines on the other side are silently screaming in their hearts about the sugar cane line that hasn't been sold yet, has been cheated out of all their money. Hasn't the business been running at a loss yet? I couldn't let life trample me like that, so I quickly pulled my bag out and told him to come here and take a look. Tangerine pulled out the purple towel and excitedly displayed the 3 items. And they are very popular in other floors. A glass of water, a mini fan, and a handheld hot pack all cost 5 VND. This is the stuff from outside the tower. Staring at the pile of goods makes me extremely proud. Then he picked up the cup and introduced it. This product has preservation magic. Just put something hot or cold in here and it can maintain the temperature. Next is the mini fan with wind magic. When you need to use it, just press the switch like this. Sejun's eyes widened and he was determined to be passionate about marketing. This girl was so crazy about her that she couldn't help it anymore but had to interrupt the cat. Coldly pointed at its goods and said in one word that these items were all trash. What the hell are you talking about? I'm so mad that this guy dares to play with his toys. It proves that I'm just an ordinary person who doesn't realize the true value of these things. The worm cart still calmly points back at me. I'm the one who lives outside the tower. What the hell? Hearing that sounds like being hit by lightning. Her ears drooped down, looking at him blankly. Sejun proceeds to explain to the poor cat that this is just an insulated cup by closing the lid to prevent outside agents. As for the mini fan and heating bag, they only have a certain expiration date. After a few hours, they will be poor. Those words seem to pierce the heart. You are so weak, you kneel down and scream in pain. Skyram clearly said that they have magic, but at that moment the mini propeller was trembling and stopped, proving that what Sejun said was perfect for mom's cooking. Tangerine angrily used his foot to continuously hit the fan and shouted in a lost voice, "Please move." The car was shaking, adding fuel to the fire. Scaran is a great condor with his mouth. Realizing the harsh truth, Leo collapsed to the ground, exclaiming that he had given the wrong heart. Why was it such a trick? Scaram, what an evil goblin who combines both poverty and decline. Now, as a bonus, this scam is called crying like rain and his hands fall to the ground loudly. Sejun next to him kept admiring his adorable voice, cursing at people without any harm. He just found it cute. The nature of the bike rose strongly within him. Sejun gently patted quiet bow and told him the first. Let me hear the end of the story. The cat tried to swallow his tears. The trembling voice said it came from 75, a neutral area of the tower. On a beautiful day, the cats in the village cheered and decided to confess their love. He listened to his friends and brought a bunch of anchovies to propose to the cat he secretly liked for a long time. The ghost was a white western cat. As soon as he saw that pile of fish, he quickly dodged away from the lady with gold branches and jade leaves. He didn't want this cheap thing, but only ate high-class pâté. It immediately raised its claws and scratched the tangerine's gift with its cheap smell. Of the anchovies makes him feel nauseous. What are you doing? I can't believe that the gentle girl you've always dreamed of can be so bossy, but because love keeps stabbing you in the head, you don't care about her mother, so do you know where I am? While trying to beg for love, a mocking voice rang out. It was Orange, the son of the richest cat in the village. He appeared handsomely in a European suit with an elaborate bow tie, making many female cats look at him with fascination. A lady like her deserves expensive things. Then Orion took the fish to the demon and made him spill the papaya in the distance. He got angry and drowned that thing. She only likes pâté, you idiot. It's so stupid, it's so beautiful, completely different from the confession that its eyes are shining the moment it looks at the salmon. Makes me completely disillusioned. Painfully chasing after Crush, who was happily in another guy's arms. Tangerine jumped up and grabbed his hand, turning into an Indian drama drenched in tears. The poor Tangerine cat asked the girl, are the memories we experience just meaningless? Seeing his lover walking next to the rich young master of Oregon, he convinced himself that everything was fake. His dark, sad eyes looked earnestly at him, filled with tears. Do you dare to swear with those tears? Just a few days ago we were running around on the sunny grasslands. To the times when I argued for no reason and you slapped me impulsively, all these days. Are you stoned? The demon frowned and spread his claws threateningly. That bald mandarin's nonsense story made him crazy. I've only smiled at you a few times and you're already delusional as hell. There are no sunny grasslands, places to roam around here and there, only a few days of storms, rain, lightning, thunder, tangerines, following, being cursed and slapped by female cats. I don't hate eating female cat fish, hot blood. Ocean claws. Point straight, please. God. I just hate eating cheap anchovies from a poor, tattered guy like you. Tangerine treats people with every sentence and every word as if tearing their hearts apart. His tears fell, the game ended. From now on the world was filled with a lonely, lovelorn person. Then the two dogs out there led each other away and immediately decided. The melon's wrapper dreamed of becoming a rich merchant so he could return and take revenge. But life is not like a dream, that's why I'm as miserable as I am now. Sejuan and the rabbits listened to you sigh and sweat more and more. However, the story of Tangerine life is not over yet. He used 50 dong thap to buy a practicing license and the necessary equipment to become a merchant. With the remaining 5 dong, he decided to buy items to sell for profit. That was also the time. You meet Scarum. At that time, the cat was waiting at the counter when the Green Goblin came to talk to him. The guy calls himself Scarum and knows a lot of things. So the two of them went to a beer bar with some sexy bunnies serving them that looked completely different from the bunnies. Their Scarum mysteriously said he had many items outside the tower. Just decide to sell them to people on the upper floors and you'll get a lot of money. You wonder why Scarum is so nice. He turned sweet because I like you. Think of it as compensation for a new merchant. The guy pretended to be angry when he saw that the tangerine hesitated. If you don't like it, I'll give it to someone else and get the tangerine. I immediately fell into the trap and didn't want to miss out on the good stuff, so I stopped him and was given a map of the customer's location. New arrivals from the seed store. He pushed the piece of paper towards the cripple and encouraged him that he could make a lot of money with this item because he had provided a lot of confidential information, so he offered to pay for the beer. Tangerine is also excited. Okay now. Because he gave all the money he had to Scarum, he had no money to buy food, that's why. Came here with a hungry stomach, knelt on the ground. After talking about it, I fell on the ground and threw a tantrum because Sejuan had robbed me of all my coins. Finally, I cried because I was useless and was robbed by this human hoo-hoo. This trick is really easy and stupid at the same time, that guy's name is Scarum, he's a scammer and he's stupid enough to listen to Sejun and he feels guilty, so don't worry. But wait until I have this idea, his face suddenly shows an extremely indescribable expression. His dark head has thought of a way to make money. First I have to calm you down so I can eat some more grilled fish. Tangerine Sejun smiled and asked, but the cat refused immediately and tried to trick me. He's not stupid and he's also penniless. Again, who wants to swindle your money? I'll give it to you for free. It sounds like you're wearing glasses in your direction. His big eyes looked suspiciously at the trickster. Sejun immediately excitedly asked the cat to work for him. On the outside, he talked and laughed but looked sinister and forced the cat without a knife. Day N1 at Sejun Tower found that idiot who mistook a partner. You want us to work together, why are you squirming in surprise? This move is so strange that you didn't expect it. Sejun likes that he currently needs a good merchant to sell items but the cat thinks he is a failure. What a pathetic story you just made. Why do you still want to hire me? Why do you feel guilty and continue? I'm just a useless, shady merchant. I can't let you lose potential employees. Sejun immediately encouraged him by complimenting him to show that he had faith in him and his unfortunate life story touched my heart. So we can become business partners. He probably thinks a cripple will understand that thing, to show his enthusiasm. Sejun excitedly called a few rabbits to open his eyes. Just a moment later, Lakeside Green Onion Resort with homegrown sausage has been completed. Sejun comfortably lay on the chair soaking up the water. Next to me, there is also a chair standing with a cool tangerine fan. I'm used to it, so I'm not used to this life of enjoyment. Only then did Mr. Run turn around to discuss business first. He preempted it by repeating that the pile of items I brought were stupid and boring. He wanted to say it, so he just had to think about it. This was the right time to give deal. Sejun offered to take the items from him to sell and then I would give you 3 to 5% commission from the sales. This guy sitting next to me is full of words, what does he expect from a cat? All day he only knows how to lick his ass, but when he sees you looking confused, he happily says you can sell the item at a higher price than I set. Fabricate. Sejun is pretty sure that if you have that ability, the higher the price, the more commissions you will get. The uncle over there is talking about business. Over here, the two rabbits are busy grilling fish. Returning to the tangerine, he was pondering why the roses had so much dirt. That guy thinks he's easy to fool, so how can Sejun know with half his eyes what he's thinking until he plays his trump card? He waved to the rabbits to come over. Seeing the fish dish in their hands, their jaws almost dropped. Our deal doesn't end there. I'll pay you 10 more fish. Sejun said while excitedly pointing at the pile of grilled fish in the hands of the two rabbits, making the tangerine gasp in surprise. Seeing the rabbit arrange fish on the stone table, he sat next to it and looked at the tangerine with longing. Even if it was a fish, as soon as he said tangerine, his saliva gurgled. Why do you want to sign a contract with me now? Then, leisurely lean back and ask, the plan has been a complete success so far, just waiting for one more nod from you and it's okay. Meanwhile, I'm having a fierce internal battle. Isn't that enough of a trick from before? Be a smart cat and don't trust anyone anymore. Tangerine shook his head, but the fragrant scent next to him kept coming and he couldn't help but salivate. He secretly wiped his mouth and salvaged a bit of shame and insisted on raising it to 20 before he would consider it again. Just waiting for that, Sejun's smile is so damn humane that he tricked an idiot into selling himself to the capitalists. What are 20? I'll give you 25 of them. As he spoke, he picked up a pile of fish and placed it on the table, making his eyes widen and his mouth wide open as he looked up at the 25 fish. God my! How could the remaining bit of integrity disappear without a trace of it? His hands waved the scales down, trying to grab them. Pile of food. Of course, in front of me, I will withdraw my firm statement and add the sentence you can eat as much as you want when you come here to pick up the goods. Really? Really? What are you doing? I'm about to be exhausted. Isn't this kind of salary? Great. More here. Seeing the big fish about to take the bait, Sejun glanced over and pressed his voice to emphasize the 4 words as much as he wanted, piercing his eardrum. Stupid cat. The tangerine eyes lit up and both legs must have been raised up to help her face or her mouth would fall out of the call and finish the movie. Prepare a stupid cat who was tricked into becoming a slave to that beach farm. I feel guilty, but I don't care. The decoy got caught in the tourist trap and immediately told his brothers to sign the contract. Of course, he excitedly jumped in and followed along. He quickly took out a pen and paper. He grabbed a pen and sketched a few basic lines. Finally, stamp your fingerprints and Van Cat will cooperate happily. Sejun happily patted his worn shoulder and laughed a little, but less than a second later, a shrill scream rang out. The guy was so excited that he signed the contract without even bothering to read what was written in it and his signature was lost. But at this moment the contract flew away in a tangerine meow. It's too late to regret it now, honey. The contract was sent to the system and appeared in front of the two people with the title Lifetime Distribution Contract. Just by hearing the name, it already smells of instability. The content of the contract refers to the mutually beneficial cooperation between the Zoom truck and the tangerine, especially the Leo, which will be exploited for the rest of its life, and the salary and bonus are the same as the worm truck just mentioned. But there is one more thing. Special terms and conditions first, if tangerines cannot be sold for more than 5 dong thap 1 month, the contract is automatically cancelled. Second, the selling price of agricultural products must always be equal to or higher than the level specified by him. Third, cats and tangerines are not allowed to arbitrarily create any additional terms. Fourth, tangerines should use empty words to talk to guests. Punching guests is strictly prohibited in all situations. The bottom line is that fingerprints and toes stand out. This fruit is gone. Seriously, looking at the slave contract that was twice as long as my body, I stood there speechless, but Sejun was extremely radiant. Isn't this an indestructible contract? It's true that it blocks all escape routes for this motherfucker, she's determined to collapse and collapse to the ground. Why did I sign the first contract with the lottery guy when she made this mistake, not to mention what is the fourth special clause that uses your voice to receive guests? I'm super embarrassed about that watery voice. I banged my tail on the ground and glared at Sejun, but he just stuck out his hand to shake his partner's hand. Just do it and you'll automatically understand. It's okay to get frustrated and shake the human's hand and decide to pull the trigger because he's still at risk of being fired because the first clause says that if he doesn't do well, he can kick him out without any compensation. Sejun believes that sooner or later you will become a bestseller, then patted my head a few times. Hearing that, Tangerine was so happy that people suddenly saw the boss who was 1,000 times more handsome than Tangerine's satisfied face, making him happy too. It was so simple to win her heart. But what are you planning to sell? It's boring to sign a contract but you can't tell them what the goods are. It's already wrong. Cherry tomato Sejun's sexual seduction made Tangerine stunned. This boss is a bit funny. People selling swords and selling pharmaceuticals are so cool. Suddenly, he suddenly revealed that he was selling tomatoes. Sejun didn't even listen to Tangerine's suspicious eyes. Reach out and pluck a ripe tomato from the vine. Then he gave it to me to check and saw that its index was not too bad, so I asked the boss how much he wanted to sell it for. In my head, I secretly predicted that I could earn about 0.01 dong thap by eliminating the new fake awakeners to enter the tower, but the price offered by Jun's car was 0.05 VND. When I heard the worm car's answer, I was so angry that this team asked for 5 times the price and then I counted it as my own, so I bought it. This Thursday. Thinking about it again and again, he realized that this is also a good thing with that sky-high price. I won't be able to sell the goods and can easily get out of that evil contract in just 1 month, but I'll still get a good deal, you goat. So how many fruits do you want me to sell? 1,000, baby. As soon as Sejun finished speaking, the rabbits quickly brought out a basket full of tomatoes and a bunch of grilled fish with onions. The speed of the rabbits' work surprised him so much that Sejun was so used to it that he only cared about how people were carrying around this stuff. Tangerine immediately pulled out a magic wrapper. This thing has the magic of preserving space expansion and weight reduction of food so it will be kept in its original state for a long time so I can show you. Threw the towel over to where the food was piling up. It immediately opened a powerful space door and sucked all the food inside, but I have a question, what did the boss do when it sucked up such a messy food? After sucking all the items inside, the towel is wrapped tightly on the ground in the shape of a drawstring backpack. Being Sijuan with the rabbit group has opened my eyes a lot. Knowing that, wouldn't it be better for the village to happily put his backpack on his shoulder? Say goodbye to my beloved family. I'll be gone for a few days and then come home early. Saying that, he jumped up to the mouth of the cave, not forgetting to wave to the society at the bottom of society, specifically the boss who cheated, a bunch of delinquent rabbits, and a bee as big as a fist. Fast forward to a few days later where 38 of the tower under the clear blue sky is a hideous spider monster roaring. Opposite it is a group of awakened people fighting hard. Swordsmen with shields should jump forward to distract the monster, creating conditions for two mages to launch fireball magic from the right side to distract it. Taking that opportunity, the swordsman immediately swung his sword and gently cut off the spider's head. The giant monster's body collapsed to the ground, and that was when the rain of praise rang out, as expected of the leader of the Phoenix Association, on Kim Dam gave birth to number 1. The heroes continuously flattered the swordsman up to the blue clouds when they saw him walking towards them, but Dong Qian was not happy with those empty compliments. Immediately go straight to the blonde girl and scold Rozika instead of flattering her so she should work harder. Suddenly a rustling sound rang out in the bushes behind us. Make the chain swing straight and twist around. Who's hiding there? He shouted loudly and quickly grabbed the sword behind his back, causing his teammates to howl in fear and turn around to look. I only see a pink and white mangosteen sticking out. Then he immediately stepped out, took off his hood, rolled his eyes, and asked everyone if they wanted to take a look at some good items. Dongsik's hand froze, thinking the beast was attacking, but it turned out to be just a stray cat. But the girls were extremely excited and ran over. Someone shouted that the girl was a merchant with the power of the emperor. Just a few seconds later, a whole crowd of people flocked here. Seeing that, Tangerine also warmly greeted, "Hello, nice to meet you, my children. Look at Tam's meowing voice and her mangosteen feet, making me fall for you girls." That's it, she even showed her eyes and asked me back, "I'm so cute." After making several batches, it got even more crazy, and now Tangerine understands why his boss forced him to use a cat voice to sell things. This name is fine for him. The greetings are over, now it's time for the main performance. Tangerine decisively pulled out the basket of red tomatoes and placed it down in front of the Order of the Phoenix. There were two curious people who came forward and looked at me. This was a cherry tomato. The pink-haired girl turned out to be here to sell food. Disappointed, he brushed his ass off and walked away thinking he was bringing something valuable like a weapon or some medicinal herbs, but there were plenty of tomatoes out there, and if he was selling food, he'd have to sell mixed rice paper. Roasted pork sandwich is really stupid. You bunch of idiots. Immediately knew they would think that, so they proudly said that this is completely different from the cherry tomatoes outside the tower. I don't believe you can check its stats and see. Pink hair and hood in surprise looking at the tiny fruit in his hand. Is this an item? The hood immediately checked the information on the system. Eating tomatoes helps increase 0.01 experience points in 10 minutes. Surely the price is not high, right? Each fruit 0.05 dong thap, brother. Tangerine's answer made him jump and frown. I'd rather spend a little more on equipment than waste money on this silly thing. Then he immediately cut off and left, leaving the pink hair staring intently at the system board. Reading the words "eating tomatoes helps reduce 10 grams of fat." The old awakened women behind him stood still like statues. Then, with bullet-like eyes, he fell straight into the pink hair. "Hey, listen again." Then rushed to the fund to check in from cherry tomatoes and discovered it could help with weight loss. Just eating 10 fruits in 1 hour can help you lose an ounce. Not only do sisters love it, they also have a muscular brother. But the girl's soul is also jostling for the top items like this. If she doesn't buy it, she's really stupid. The whole group rushes into each other to buy and no one gives in, making Little Quiet a little scared. The loud shouts to each other attracted the attention of the others who saw their teammates lining up to buy tomatoes, so they all turned around and drove back to the tangerine place. Man also rekindled the idea of trying to buy some. Rarely watch it. At that time, at the cave farm, the system was announcing Sejuan's promotion and was busy harvesting tomatoes for the next time. He suddenly remembered tangerines. If he hadn't been wandering around, he would have encountered false awakenings by now. Yes. With the function of burning 15% of fat, cherry tomatoes will become an extremely hot diet product for women but can only be purchased at the Black Tower. I put the succulent fruit in my mouth even though I grew it myself, but every time I eat Sejuan I can't stop exclaiming how delicious it is. With a radiant face looking up at the mouth of the cave, he believed that his agricultural products would make a splash in the market. The dieters on Earth will definitely be very greedy. At that time, on the 38th floor, Quiet was breathing heavily next to an empty basket with a few dong towers lying on the ground. This was the first sellout in his life. Is it true that the legend of the source of Trader's influence has officially been captured? Start from here. Returning to the unstable farm, the garden planted carrot seeds that have begun to sprout. While Dad Rabbit was very excited, Sejuan was thoughtfully thinking that only 700 seeds bloomed out of the 1,000 seeds he bought. The previous miracle cherry tomato only had 732 seeds germinated out of 1,200 seeds. Corn and sweet potatoes bought at the seed store my husband also got about 60 to 70%. It seems that the ratio of carrots and cherry tomatoes is similar. Sitting sadly next to a few rows of carrots, Sejuan wished they would sprout more, but maybe the soil in the cave wasn't fertile enough or his farmer level was too low. We must quickly find a way to fix this problem because now there are human slaves to sell things, so the group at home needs to harvest as many agricultural products as possible. Sejuan and Dad Rabbit were discussing business when they heard a thud. Immediately turned around and saw a bright torch spinning overhead. The author of this story is none other than the young squid fisherman standing next to the lake tossing a torch high into the air to lure the fish from the lake. He grabbed the ink hammer and jumped up high. After a few kills, in less than a few seconds, 5 fish had their heads punctured. My child gently landed on the ground like the god Thor. The squid raised his hand to catch the torch and the fish fell to the ground. Who is so good at it? Sejuan pulled the whole rabbit family over. He was constantly complimented when he saw the pile of fish behind him and his grandson in a position that made several pie sounds. When the car trembled closer, he saw that his body was glowing. He had leveled up. Why had he seen the White Rabbit brothers light up while farming? But this was the first time he saw the ink level up like that. Sejuan happily patted his head. I thought you could level up too much, but now you're no worse than any of your friends. Squid puffed his nose up his ass and turned to the little white rabbits as if to say if he was good or not, even though they didn't like her arrogant appearance. They still reluctantly clapped their hands to please him. To celebrate the squid's promotion, Sejuan generously gave the rabbit slave a few minutes off work to rummage through his bag. Pulled out the cat's hidden thermos, smiled and told me to drink coffee. As soon as I opened the lid, I saw several packages of G7 inside. Sejuan happily picked up a package. It seemed like neither Scarum nor the Mandarin had ever opened it before. If Tangerine sold coffee instead of Sejuan thermo cups, I would lose all my money, but that stupid cat doesn't know anything. So there's this scene where a blind cat stumbles upon fried fish. Sejuan poured coffee into the plastic bottle. Even without hot water or ice, he can make it at Mariano. From the lake water, he then asked to add a little honey and completed the dish. The harmonious combination of bitter and sweet creates a captivating flavor. Just one sip will help the user dispel all fatigue. Full of energy after a long day, Sejuan happily took a sip of it. It was so delicious. Seeing his nephews clinging to him, the kind uncle shared the remaining half with them. The squid was excited to try the poison first and took a small sip. His face turned pale and his whole body trembled. Seeing this, he was still sucking and tearing, but still stubbornly tried to drink it. Song Gwin told the rabbits to pass the black liquid from hand to hand, and they would tremble and laugh when they saw these little guys continuously spitting. It seems like the rabbit's tongue is quite sensitive to bitter tastes, so it waited for such criticism. Laughing like he wanted to cry, Sejuan's eyes landed on a bee near the mouth of the cave. So he waved hello. Baby heard his call and immediately turned to look. The brown bee immediately flew away excitedly to the golden honeycomb as if he wanted to show off to the whole group. The car trembled below, I saw my mouth open and froze for a few seconds. Why was Sejuan so sad when he had to come home for dinner every day? Now that I'm moving here, I'm so happy. Happily jumping around with the rabbits to welcome new members, he even wanted to hold a 2-day and 2-night party because there were cheap workers. While dancing jubilantly, the system board suddenly appeared asking to give 10 cherry tomatoes to the tower manager with a big reward, but if he refused, he would be disappointed because Sejuan kept delaying the mission plus negotiating with him. The situation went smoothly and he no longer threatened him. Sejuan happily chuckled, feeling pitiful and pitiful. After thinking about it, I took out 10 cherry tomatoes for the manager and immediately received a notification saying thank you right away. Ahihi, now I know how to thank you anymore. Why did Sejuan show his face that he was extremely satisfied with this expression of the manager? Suddenly, the smile faded from his face. I put my head down on the cliff and I'm so thankful. I'm so easily seduced, but that's all I can say to thank you. At that time, at a restaurant in the area for traveling merchants, a pale green hand slammed the beer cup down on the table. Why hasn't that damn cat come back yet? Scarum angrily complains to his accomplices for anyone who doesn't remember that this is the person who swindled money from our baby Tangerine. The 2 remaining goblins had heard him trick the stupid cat but didn't understand what he was wearing it for. Scarum just told me that he doesn't understand why he hasn't returned to the merchant guild to report the pile of junk, so how can he sell it? Are you worried? I asked a question but Scarum brushed it off, so I'm worried, but I can't say I don't feel sorry for him, so he's planning a plan in case we meet again. Having to buy a glass of milk and introduce her to a job while also lending her money to do business made the malnourished goblin mother extremely surprised. Scarum immediately informed this idiot that the main purpose of everything was to let that stupid mother fall into a spiral of debt, interest on her mother, interest on her child, and eventually she would become a slave serving him for life. Scarum smiled sinisterly, his red eyes glowing with ambition and cruelty. Not only did his juniors fear him, but they also expressed admiration. You're such a fucking genius. They were so excited that they asked to find a solution for Big Brother to enjoy a little bit of China. However, Scarum was in no hurry. Just as Ben caught his prey, he would suddenly come to his mouth. That careless attitude made his juniors worship him even more. Was fighting for his crotch, so Skyram immediately checked today's merchant rank with a smile on his face. Show off, I finally made it to the top 1000 before flying, specifically ranked 999th, are you still in the top? Scarum smiled proudly at himself while listening to his juniors happily slap their ass. Then he started scrolling up to see the higher ranks, thinking sooner or later he would surpass them. What the hell? Its evil eyes opened as wide as possible. What the hell is this? Even in his wildest dreams, he never expected to see the fat cat's name on the chart at number 982, 10 places higher than him. Seeing this, the 2 juniors whispered loudly to each other, making Scarum angry. Dark suddenly slammed his hand on the table. He became extremely angry and said, "Don't you dare pretend to be stupid to trick me. If I catch you, you will surely die. I'm back now." As soon as I mentioned Chow Chow, Chow Chow came and immediately burst into joy. I smiled from ear to ear, but it wasn't Scarum, it was the boss who was grinding his ass in the garden. Sejuan turned around in surprise. Then he stood up and asked where you've been wandering around for the past few days, not understanding what he meant. I thought my father was going to hit me, so I was scared and held my head. Baby promised that from now on he wouldn't go around anymore. What are you talking about? Hearing that, Sejuan stiffened and made Tangerine worry in a low voice and say that he had been out for 4 days and then got insulted by the boss. Obviously you said it takes at least 10 days for a shipment, but in the end I sold out and had plenty of time to go out. Tangerine saw him raising his voice, so he spoke up and said sorry, don't get angry at him. At that moment, Sejuan was surprised and calculated that all 14 days had passed, meaning that he had sold out the goods as soon as he arrived. Heavily put your hand on Tangerine's shoulder. Sejuan squirmed into a pale face. If you don't want to be shaved, tell me from A to Z quickly. Tangerine was so scared that he was sweating and had no choice but to obey. So both man and rabbit sat in the garden and listened to the cat explain for a long time. That's all that happened, boss. The cat was moody. Kneeling on the ground, worried about his future. On the contrary, Sejuan is quite amazed at my sales ability. Seeing that the situation seemed peaceful, I took out the money and gave it to the boss. This is 50 dong thap, sir. This was the first time Sejuan saw a real dong thap, so he carefully looked at the gold coin in his hand little by little, then gave the employee Tangerine 2 dong as a morale boost. I happily accepted the money but wondered why the employee had to be the best seller. Oh, this person still dares to pay the price. Sejuan decided to scold him first to stop his habit of wandering around. But if she works hard next time, he will both reinstate her and increase her commission to 5% of the excited fund. I agree and am determined to regain the title of best seller. At that time, Sejuan asked if tangerines were famous other than to sell goods. He immediately turned on his pompous mode and affirmed that from now on, he would talk like this forever. There was nothing left to retort. Sejuan happily dreamed about his future. Age is thrown away. I decided to put myself in contact with him, and Sejuan immediately tried to explain that the name of the grower will also appear on the agricultural product data sheet, and soon everyone will know him. Tangerine put on his face to listen and then cried out in despair. The hairs and whiskers immediately stood up. Damn it! For trainee traders like Tangerines, the system will hide the grower's name to prevent professional traders from stealing the goods. That means Sejuan's name should not appear on the cherry tomatoes spec sheet at all. If you let him find out, you'll be damned. Not only will I be demoted, but I will also lose my commission. Seeing that Kid Loi Chai suddenly stood with a dumbfounded face, Sejuan immediately bent down to ask, making me angry. I took a scarf to cover my face and immediately asked to take the goods and leave for my life. Why should I just rest for a few more days and then leave? It's okay to be so gentle, brother. But I immediately shot away with my hands as fast as a tomato telescope into the space bag, causing my colleagues to reach out and scream at the weasel. There's not much time left. The only way is to earn 1,000 dong to level up to intermediate level driving to be able to unlock the grower's name. That look of lost and worried expression caught Sejuan's eyes again. He thought that the yellow-haired boy wanted to burn himself out with his new job, saying that there was no such thing as spring. Under the clear blue sky is a high-rise building that, after a long time hiding in a cave, is transformed into the real world. A group of men were gathering and chatting loudly. At that moment, this Luke Dain man's phone rang. I saw my stepdaughter sending a text message praising the cherry tomatoes my dad brought home. They were number one. It made him so emotional that he burst into tears. What's wrong, Mr. Dong? Chained the pink-haired guy. Seeing his brother's tears, the two Rose immediately turned around and asked, only to find out that his daughter has been struggling to lose weight lately, so she's very sensitive, but now she's excited to text her all kinds of love messages. Dong-sik proudly said it was all thanks to the cherry tomatoes in the tower. Last time he only bought 20, but seeing his beloved daughter's positive reaction, he immediately regretted not buying more. But the straight guy next to me complains that he doesn't understand why women are so obsessed with their weight. This guy is definitely single. Another guy immediately shared the phone wallpaper and told Crush that he wanted to give cherry tomatoes to Crush. Now that they were dating, the other two guys couldn't help but be very surprised. I still have some at home. The pink shirt tried everything to catch two big fish in front of them, earnestly asking him to sell them to them, especially the guy who didn't have a girlfriend, ready to spend a lot of money to buy them before the situation became tense. Then, Dong-sik immediately faced a solution. Instead of arguing, he suggested that we go straight to the 38th floor. His extremely serious attitude was that everyone panicked and protested. As soon as they got a breath of air, they had to leave. If you continue to fight monsters, that girl will have to apologize again. Let's see. The pink shirt was trying to stop it when a good voice rang out. We're ready, with high heels hitting the road. Jessica and her coolly dressed sisters appeared. These girls look like they're just hanging out, not fighting. Does the worm's body sing? That little bit of fat you have is all thanks to eating tomatoes, so Jessica wriggled and told me I can't wait to go fight spider monsters, but in reality, these moms just want to come to buy weight loss items. Dong-sik didn't care about such nonsense and immediately called 500 brothers who hated her to the Black Tower. While walking under the bright sunlight, Dongsik promised himself that he would buy the whole package to become a great father in the eyes of his daughter. Also under that clear blue sky, despondent sighs continued to resound. He sadly closed his ears and walked away until he had enough 1,000 dong. The limit of space bags is 1,500. At this rate, it will take more than 10 more trips to collect enough money. The more I think about it, the more my head hurts, but looking around, there's not a single sign of them going anywhere. Just as she was about to leave, 2 people ran out to hold her back. This is the group of people in the Phoenix Society where she is excitedly calling everyone to come out. When they saw the cat, they were as happy as if they had caught gold, making the Tangerine wonder if he was being sought after. So why did they say they had planted the sapphire tree here for 3 days? They were just afraid that the cat wouldn't come back. I was really surprised to hear that they were waiting here just to buy coffee. The cat's mind suddenly bounced around unusually fast and came up with a plan when he heard the customer ask for the price. It says the price has increased. The other guy was startled and asked what he said. At that moment his teammates also walked out. Dongsik wondered what was going on and was told by his subordinates that the price of the item had increased. So how much had it increased? Please give me a specific number. I'm just waiting for you to say 0.07 dong thap, but that's not much. As soon as I finished speaking, I was worried that I had raised the price a bit too much. Who would have thought that a lump of money would fall to the ground and say I'll take 200 dongsik? I don't understand why such a precious item is so cheap. I'd be stupid not to buy this great deal right away. Seeing that the leader's analysis was too reasonable, the members of the Order of the Phoenix whispered and discussed and then competed to buy in large quantities. The tangerines that had not yet been sold were sold out in a blink of an eye. Looking at the pile of gold coins in front of my eyes, I was extremely happy and then had to raise the price even higher. While busy collecting money, Dongsik asked Tangerine when he would come back here, surprising him but still calmly replied in 10 days. This is a good time to go fight monsters and then return to the fields to be careful. Before the cat, remember to bring more coffee next time. Then tell the people in the book fair to pack their bags and go to work. It will take another 10 days to get more goods for you guys. Tangerine sitting in the other corner smiled sinisterly at this group of filming customers. Soon I will reach 1,000 dong and I will quickly level up before the boss finds out. After that, they had to sell courses on how to become a billionaire in a week. Become a top idol. Tens of thousands of enthusiasts are immersed in a future that will never happen. Only 3 beautiful girls appeared from nowhere. Wow, whose cat is this beautiful? When I see girls pointing at me and saying I look too much like that cat, he gets angry. Mom, I'm unique, how can I be like any other cat? Don't call her baby, my name is Tangerine, I'm a decent young man, Tangerine said angrily, making the long-haired girl apologize. At the same time, I introduced myself, my name is Suha and explained that I looked very much like a king she knew, like that belt. Tangerine turned 360 degrees and brushed it in half. Walk away. I'm the #1 handsome cat in this tower. That cat is curled up. Soha quickly searched his bag, pulled out a strange red stick and pointed it straight at Tangerine's angry face. Do you want to eat regular soup? Soha used a cute voice to invite her. Then I put the beak close to my mouth and told me to only eat female fish. Squinting his eyes lit up, constantly kicking his tongue with the bonus soup package. How could there be such delicious food in the world? I quickly ate an entire package, my tail turned upside down, begging for more tangerines. Oh, where is the shameless Tangerine? But Soha was kind enough to spread out a bunch of delicious soups. Let the baby go, but he lost all shame in going until he asked for more and the girl immediately agreed. As long as you take a picture with me. Without looking around, he immediately jumped into Soha's lap to take a selfie with her, and happily left with a bunch of delicious peach branch soup. On the other side, the other 2 girls gave up on Soha and felt like someone brought cat food into the tower, but Tangerine was so cute and cheese sticks were worth it. Soha is looking at the phone with passionate eyes. Does the photo of you and that cat look adorable? Return to Sejuan's cave and co. Guys. A black rabbit's but retreated. It hit me right in the eye. Everyone, the Tangerine staff has a hard time doing business. The boss at home is equally busy these days. Sejuan is training the squid. You'll probably wonder what about the piranhas, right? Our male protagonist has carefully blocked all the holes that they can swim through, but he is still a bit worried. Thanks to diligent practice, the squid has improved many times and promoted many times before reporting that he almost drowned because he jumped into the lake to celebrate. Remembering that time, Sejuan was still in shock. Suddenly he saw a clump of black feathers floating on the surface of the lake. He let out a loud scream, causing the mother rabbit to faint. The fish below were also confused. I almost lost the manpower capable of fighting. Luckily, I was still able to maintain the same formation. Now that I think about it, I'm still startled, but you're still smiling. Sejuan walked past his bewildered grandpa and the two ignorant white rabbits in the lake, so just ignore them. Playing in water burns too many calories, so he searched his bag for honey, but only saw an empty plastic bottle. Speaking of which, it seems like Sejuan hasn't seen the brown bee come out of the hive for a long time. I don't know what's going on. Just looking up, one person and one rabbit couldn't help but be shocked. The golden nest is surrounded by a flock of young bees. It's been a while since she's been gone and she's already given birth to so many children. It's time to visit potential human resources. But going empty-handed is also weird. Should I bring flowers as a gift? The young bees were lying cozily in the nest when they heard a call from below. Two rabbits and a goofy-looking guy were waving at them. Sejuan held out the flower branch as a housewarming gift but only saw a few young bees turn on battle mode. The wings fluttered, the red eyes lit up the purple stinger under the ass. Scared the white rabbits and immediately ran away. The remaining one saw that the opportunity to fight had come and immediately summoned the hammer. Only Uncle was slow to react and could only stare wide-eyed and stand still like a statue. The noise echoed straight to the queen bee's ears in the hive. Outside, young men are eager to fight and the squid rabbit is fighting fiercely with each other. Bees have wings, so don't worry about them. If you touch them, they'll snap at you. They're about to sting your ass. Making Sejuan scream in fear. Suddenly I saw something really strange. High above, a queen bee 1/3 the size of Sejuan is flying above the heads of the young bees. Aunt, he stammered without saying a word. Staring at the honey bee surrounded by young bees. Here is Bai, who he knows. That adorable face and cute cry is definitely her. But this size must be Queen. Damn Bai. The queen bee gently flew closer to Sejuan, who was still surprised. It was so big that the squid dropped the hammer and his mouth opened wide. Poison bees are carnivorous insects that reside in towers and hunt their prey using poison. It's like that in the dictionary and in everyone's understanding at the tower, but the dragon still reads it and finds it wrong. Because he searched the library for tower management manuals and there was still no record of this strange case. It took so much time but there was still no answer. The black dragon encountered the book, but for the time being, it only gave birth and had no impact on the world inside the tower. It's just that it doesn't understand why it could be different before and after the transformation. Sejuan surprised only the bee was happy to show off its new look. Gone are the days when cute bees used to rub against his cheeks. Brown bee has officially become Bim Sua's mother. In the matter of being charming and graceful, from now on we call it style. Rewind a bit to the time when poisonous bees first discovered Sejuan's prehistoric cave. It eats until it is full and then returns. At that time, its belly was big and its body emitted a strong scent, causing the bees in the hive to look at it with different eyes. Gradually the queen bee realized and became hostile toward it. But the poison man also gradually understood that his grandmother hated it because it was a female bee that could reproduce. Since then, this female bee has flown farther to find a place to build her nest and live independently. She cannot feel at peace when sharing the same hive with the other queen bee. Luckily he found Sejuan's prehistoric cave, suitable for making a nest, so it built one on the ceiling. Because it is the only animal with wings that builds its nest at high altitudes. So no one knew that Ms. Ong had to endure constant pain. Just like the rabbits that Luke Dain looks like when he's grown up. Ms. B also had to go through the same time until she appeared in her present graceful appearance. Even he was surprised, let alone the others. But Sejuan still gave the tomato flower to celebrate its successful transformation and labor. The fruit is a bit slimy, but how can he hold back in front of the yellow flowers he has been eating since he was still an adult? Sejun brought it to the place. He liked it very much. He went straight to his body and caressed it. Even though he's already big, he still likes to rub his body against Sejun. The young bees saw this and were no longer wary. Each child has a piece of the swing hanging on Sejun's body and gradually gets acquainted with the rabbit family. From today his small family has become a big family. A few days later, there was a loud noise in Sejun's cave. It was the rabbits who grabbed the bamboo blanket and grabbed his hair to shake him awake. They dragged Sejun away while he was still asleep. Husband called Pai Pai, continuously pointing to something in the middle of the carrot field. They have enough reason to wake up Sejun because it is a green carrot projected by the moon. Sejun didn't expect it could change like that because these tubers are still very young and they already ripen overnight. He glanced at the rabbit and smiled and asked, "Is this why you guys called me up?" Then OK shouted and spit it out. Sejun pull up the fat green carrot. Before the eyes of admiration and delight of the rabbits. It's bigger. He thought there was also a name for agility carrots, obviously to add agility points to the eater. The system told him that carrots made Moon Grade A increase his agility by 0.5 points. The validity period is up to 45 days, giving him 70 harvest points. What a remarkable advancement the higher ranks allow. He stores it longer and increases experience by 20 points compared to other types. Sejun gave the bunny family carrots to thank them for their hard work. They like it very much. Big eyes and small eyes stare intently at this magical tuber. The sickle rabbit volunteered to share the carrot because its tool is a sickle that helps its mother cut green onions. It kicked up once. Use the sickle like a professional ninja does. Some extremely beautiful cuts in the air. Successfully divide the carrot into equal parts for the whole family. It landed with handsome confidence. Before the carrot even fell into my hand, even Sejun had to applaud the top's excellent craftsmanship. It's just the squid that's not happy. What's the problem? Divide everyone equally. But when it comes to it, there's only the last part. Sejun reached out to pick a blue tomato. Excitedly counted up to 5 fruits in total. After the lamb noyette wave. This time, he generously gave one to the tower manager. If you see it's okay, then give it to him for a skill. The tower manager will think and give you skills, and next time the words on the window surprised Sejun and gave him a few seconds to think. Normally it refuses outright. Suddenly there was a scream from outside. As soon as Tanger came back, he saw a group of Sejun's poisonous bees staring at him, wanting to sting him so much that he was so scared that his face turned pale. The hairs on the leaves are said to stand up because tangerines were not present when they were born. Sejun insisted on going to the station and he went back and forth emotionally. I don't think this cat is dangerous, kids. That's it, the bees stole their ass and left. Don't let Sejun sneeze out a bunch of cat hair, after all, it's a stray cat. That's how the hair flew all over his nose and he smelled tangerine. Thank you, Sejun. He turned around and pulled his mother away to see why today the employee had the audacity to call their boss like a brother. So, Ton Min Ton Na, because the boss said that we are a family, that's why he's like that. There's that belt. Who told him to believe that Sejun held out his hand and told him to quickly calculate the revenue first and then talk. This time, he brought in 75 Sejun coins and did not hesitate to praise him for working so hard, just waiting for that. Tangerine afternoon, another equally big bag of gold showed off how quick he was to get an extra fee of 0.02 VND per fruit because the other guys wanted to buy it early. He was very happy, waiting for Sejun's compliments, and Fong became a business cat. But he only gave 2 coins to the employee who kept a cold face. The boss wanted to squeeze Kiet out of his staff. He demanded that he work harder, making Thut lose all his strength. It's just an act. If he heard Tangerine talk about how smart he was to increase the price first, he would definitely be surprised and promoted immediately. But the manager sneaked in first and jumped up to tell him that tangerines were increasing the price of each fruit to make more money, so now Sejun can take advantage of exploiting books like that. The sound of rustling next to him attracted Sejun to look over. I immediately saw the tangerine chewing to death on the bag of bonus soup with great pleasure and satisfaction. Cats walking on 2 legs or 4-legged cats also love this dish. There's no way out. Sejuan loves cats, but he's poor and has never owned one before, so he doesn't know what's in his hand. He was even more surprised that it was something a female hunter gave him to a tangerine after taking a picture with it. A cat giving soup to a tangerine sounds normal, but it's actually very unusual because there's no such thing in the tower. There is only one way to bring things in from outside the tower, which is to teleport through a black hole. Second, the false awakenings brought with you. They can bring as many things as they want, but the total weight brought into the tower is only 1 kilogram. Priority is usually given to items needed to climb the tower. For example, a phone powered by solar batteries is used to communicate or take photos. Snacks or cigarettes used while climbing the tower. But who would give soup to a cat? Suddenly thought of that. Sejuan came up with an idea and didn't know what it was, but he had to praise himself for being smart first. His smile became more and more perverted as he thought about how to make a lot of money. Working as a tangerine next door, I thought this guy wanted to steal his reward soup. Timidly holding out the bonus soup to share with the boss, he wanted to say, "Hey, if the boss wants it, tell mom." His thoughts must have flowed to Sejuan's temples. I don't know how he stole the boy's drink. So ugly, he hugged Sejuan and wanted to take it back, but he insisted that it was no. The reason is that the cat allowed someone else to take pictures without his permission. The cat let go of his pants immediately and was scared to death when he heard he had just violated the contract. Don't be too disappointed, let us business cats go find new customers. Okay, no, hearing that suddenly it woke up. I'll let you work as a merchant for 1 hour. If you do well, I'll let you work longer. Why don't you just live for that title? Sejuan lifted it off the ground. Start your business services with a warm fire. And the serving boys brought fish to grill. Sejuan placed the tangerine on his lap so he could lie happily, wrapping his hand in soup to reward him. Tangerine fell in love with the business class service and said that in addition to the bonus soup, he also wanted grilled fish. Sejuan heard that, holding grilled fish in both hands like a real chef. Suddenly he remembered how a cat with short legs like a tangerine could climb to the 38th floor without having to fight monsters. Trin Trong's tangerine face shows that it has a trader's travel license. The badge on its neck belonged to a member of the Traveling Merchant Association. A fee must be paid each year to maintain the title. According to Tangerine, the higher your rank, the more money you have to pay each year and the more benefits you have. Having this badge means that the traveling merchant is recognized and protected by other associations, so the new monsters cannot attack it. So can you bring the hunter to this floor? Sejuan asked about the dungeon, but Tangerine very slowly explained that the monsters only ignore the traders, but the hunters still get punched as usual. Furthermore, the people in its merchant guild have a shortcut specifically for new merchants that can move to the 38th floor in just 5 days. It was reasonable for Sejuan to be curious and ask what floor this was when he heard the cat let out the number 99. It took more than 5 minutes for Sejuan to only utter a single word. He looked at Sejuan with sympathetic eyes, like he was looking at someone who was stupid, so he wouldn't know why. The car's mind vibrated and got stuck in number 99, unable to get out, thinking I was in the parking lot. He reeled in confusion and then collapsed to the ground. It made me so scared that I thought something was wrong with him. Tell him not to care because he's not a hunter. Lang has been out for a long time. Sejuan still thinks this whole tower is only about 40 floors. It doesn't make any difference whether he's on the first floor or the 99th floor. He's still a farmer, he's just no longer at the bottom of society, but his mind seems to have split into 2 halves. So, I kept calling him and he didn't answer. He rushed over and squeezed Sejuan's cheek, causing him to wake up a little, but not quite. Sejuan asked questions like an idiot. He should have ignored this boss. But the week's reward over there was burned black and he couldn't eat or drink anymore. Sejuan's vision turned from blurry to the ground to the blurred flames. Think about the hunters fighting for days and weeks before reaching the 40th floor. In the corner of the 99th floor, who knows when spring will reach the top of the tangerine tree, I see he seems to have revived. Then he pointed his 5 fingers and asked the fish to be grilled until it was fragrant and delicious. The merchant cat did not eat burnt food. Playtime was over and Sejuan was not in the mood to lead anymore and announced that Tangerine's job as a businessman was over. He had to let out a sigh of regret, causing the badge on his neck to shake. Sejuan looked at it passionately. In a hidden corner of the green forest somewhere, there is a group of people who are both injured and exhausted and lacking food, complaining about how bad the situation is. Suddenly a pair of grass shoes appeared. Who else but Sejuan and the merchant-like Tangerine Cat would bring food to sell to hungry hunters? The crowd stood up immediately, realizing it was the legendary merchant Park Sejuan. And the famous Tangerine Cat came to their rescue once he screamed with his hair like an idol. Just like that, selling all the food makes a lot of money, to the point where I feel like I'm becoming a billionaire. What a beautiful and feasible dream. Sejuan excitedly asked immediately how he could also become a traveling businessman like him. But the cat looked at Sejuan in a godlike manner and informed him that only creatures born in the tower could become traveling merchants, sir. Sejuan felt like his whole sky had collapsed, his faith was gone, tears filled his eyes and he sank deep. Seeing his disappointment, he wanted to try to comfort him, but Sejuan had already raised his face to the sky, scratched his head and pulled his hair, screaming ah! Startled everyone and moved away from him. Mixed in with the helpless howls were curses at Sejuan Tower, screaming with all their strength. Shocked all the rabbits working on the farm. And the bee house is pollinating. Even the dragon inside the tower sipping grilled cherry tomatoes also heard a sound echoing to the point where he thought someone was singing karaoke. But Sejuan only screamed for 2 to 3 minutes before he stopped sticking out his tongue and breathing harder than a dog. I've never seen my boss go crazy like that. I just hope my salary won't be deducted. After shouting, Sejuan seemed to be able to release his anger a few times and then accepted the truth. If you can't leave this tower, he will enjoy every moment to the fullest. His 2 cherry tomatoes were also enjoying their time on an expensive white ceramic plate. A middle-aged blonde man who looked like a director asked an undercover lady. Is this a mysterious item that is increasingly popular among hunters? The girl said this was bought by her brother in the Phoenix Guild from a traveling merchant. She is Jenny, the CEO of an pharmaceutical company, and told him to check by opening the item status window and see for himself. Michael Karen, vice president of a food company, just picked up a tomato and was able to read its information immediately. But he didn't seem to care much. He just asked Jenny what she wanted to do. She hesitantly asked the person who holds 39% of the global food market. Look, you don't even know what the business opportunity is, why should you ask? Instead of asking what Randy was, Michael instead threatened her to be careful with her mouth. Jenny Chan, not bothering to speak, headed to the corner of the wall and snapped her fingers. A large information board appeared right before the 2 people's eyes. There is a lot of information, but the most prominent thing is the effect of reducing 10 grams of fat after eating 1 fruit and the percentage increase in fat burning rate. At this point, Michael was attracted and stood up to stare at it. Items taken from the tower cannot die. Compounds or skin ingredients can only be consumed 1 fruit at a time, but the Insta company has concluded that this fruit has great weight loss effects. Michael lowered his butt and sat down on the office chair. It smelled good, but he thought that Jenny Flex was so delicious that he couldn't keep talking. Because Jenny said frankly, she needed the farm project in the tower that Michael had previously tried but failed. He was still bringing it up because it was such a secret that Jenny also knew. She stood up and offered a very good deal so that Michael could regain the trust of his father, the current president of Garrel Company. I heard that the board of directors will elect the next president to replace the incumbent who is sick. Divide the tomato up for Michael to look at again. Jenny asks him if he finds it more appetizing now. Reached out and picked up the cherry tomato in the girl's hand. He put it straight into his mouth and complimented. It's so sweet and delicious. Then he opened his mouth and laughed in amusement. Still wondering if it's because this tomato is so delicious or because of something else. Laughed. Bored, he held back. I wonder if I can give you some more fruit for fun. I'm already eating Jenny's portion. If you're good, go to the tower and buy some. If you decide to enjoy your time here, you will seriously use it to map out the things you know around this place. Currently, his prehistoric cave has many inconveniences, especially the lack of daily necessities. Moreover, his cave is like a public hole. Anyone can pee in it. Sejuan must find a way to ensure safety around him. From the tangerine's mouth, he knew there were no monsters nearby. But a little further away, there was one. Looking at its dirty hand, he knew that the monster was huge. It's really hard to go anywhere that's a giant red bear. Horrifying memories appeared right in Sejuan's head. How could he forget the time he almost died on that blue moon night? Although I wandered around many places, I was still afraid that the red bear would not attack the merchant cat. But the way he sees Tangerine passing by and glances at him makes him feel psychologically traumatized. Glanced at the melody that was wandering around next to the cherry tomatoes and squirreled away the blooming season so that there would be plenty of pollen for them to reproduce. Sejuan really hopes that the store has more and more poisonous bees so he can tell them to patrol around to be sure. The sleeping bee suddenly felt his head wet and opened his eyes to find himself in the bear's mouth. His plan was to ask the bees to tie a rope made from green onions and a nearby tree. He will grab it and climb out. It sounded quite doable, so Sejuan started working on it. He stood up and called Tangerine to come closer to give him the job. This time it's not a business matter, so we have to coax the cat a little. He made a special face and said this time the task is extremely difficult. Can the cat trader do it? Scratching Tangerine's itch, how could he refuse that face that shone with 10-point prestige? A few days later, on the 38th floor, there were already a few people setting up camp as if waiting for something to appear. Bring your cherry tomatoes, nothing else. He thought that at this point, everyone would fight for everything, so he happily jumped down below. It revealed a beautiful circle and then landed on the ground, facing the expectant eyes of the other group of people. They ran to it on 3 legs and 4 legs. Happily exclaiming that she loves Mew New. She's not in a hurry to put out the goods like every other day. This time Tangerine put his hands on his hips, announcing that today I will change the way I buy and sell. What do you mean? Let's try to explain clearly. From today I will only sell 500 cherry tomatoes at a time to the highest bidder. So those who don't have money can always buy quail. The starting price is 35 VND. At that time, Sejuan was sitting in the cave, watching the rabbits harvesting cherry tomatoes, thinking that his tomatoes were unexpectedly popular, so someone brought him bonus soup to buy for him. The demand has increased a lot, but he has no power, so the fastest way to make money is to auction more things with squid in addition to making money. I hope this time I can prove my delivery skills to this boss. After eating and drinking, he stood up and intended to return to work with the black rabbit. The window shows a side quest to give the tower manager a tomato and honey smoothie like Sejuan drank as a reward for a career skill, and when he refuses, he sulks. He wanted to explain that squeezing tomatoes takes a lot of time. Manual work should be left until work time. But the system was like boiling water, it kept popping up several notification windows to notify the tower manager ordering him to do it right now. Flex skills are given Super VIP Pro level. It's racking my brain to think how long it will take to come out. Do you want to drink a smoothie or want to show off? Why don't you show your skills directly and then he offers you a smoothie? Is it quick and easy? The manager wants to, but the manager doesn't dare to break the rules that the ancestors named Juan Rose still have to be there to eat, my friend. So this time, he will pamper the tower manager to get that skill. It's true that nothing can escape the eyes of the baby dragon's appetite and drink. A few days ago, Sejuan came up with a trick of making 50 cherry tomatoes into a smoothie mixed with a little honey. It was so delicious that the rabbits wanted to drink it all the time and then came to the tower manager to ask for it. Pick out about 50 ripe tomatoes. He put a portion on his hand and took a deep breath, then squeezed them tightly and they pop out. After squeezing the tomatoes, I was exhausted. It was his turn to come and ask for some golden enzyme. Drop the scoop into the smoothie. Although the process is very unhygienic, the resulting cherry tomatoes mixed with honey look quite delicious. The status window of sipping a glass of water immediately revealed to him that the tower manager was waiting for a glass of water to the point of flapping his wings. Inferring that the merchant of this tower is a cat, I wonder who is in charge of this tall place. A black dragon is sucking down a smoothie. The compliments are so delicious, heaven and earth, no one else comes here. He was glad that he liked the glass of water. Then I was extremely curious and clicked to see what my reward was. The level 1 beekeeping special career skill is still a skill based on what he has been doing. But Sejuan finds it extremely different from foam. Window change system, tell me more about this skill and let him know that you can use the beekeeping skill on all of your hives. In addition to the fact that they obey Sejuan's orders, the more the foraging area is expanded, the queen bee's egg-laying speed and honey production speed increase slightly. So you're worried that the poisonous bees won't obey you when they leave the tower management cave, but they give you such a timely skill? Sejuan happily looked at a corner as if imagining there was a camera and asked the manager, should I complain? Thank you very much. The dragon heard the sound of him thanking him coming from the ball and wondered if he had heard it wrong, but suddenly found it cute. He twirled the straw and thanked him. If you can't say it with your mouth, give me another cup of tomato. Sejuan ignored that ridiculous request. Clearing his throat as if it was something important, he asked the building manager, are you a pig with wings? Ask a meaningless question but put on a serious face. The dragon changed his voice immediately. A bunch of billboards cursing Sejuan senseless and ugly go to hell jumped out continuously, but he disappeared right before Sejuan's eyes and didn't understand where he was wrong. Why was it so strange? Tangerine on the 38th floor was alone, staring at the group of people in front of him. Posted temporarily when he heard the announcement that cherry tomatoes must now be purchased by auction. No, today I can't buy cherry tomatoes for my daughter and my image of a caring father will collapse. So the team leader raised his hand and shouted the number 41, startling the team members. It's true, but right now we still have these cherry tomatoes, so just buy them first and then share them with others later. Among the people there were people shouting higher prices. Then in turn the price was pushed up to 60 coins. It was too much for Dongsik to carry, so he had to borrow money from his team members. 100 VND. Michael confidently smiled and offered twice as much as the others. As expected, no one dared to speak up anymore. The first basket of 500 fruits was quickly finalized. In the buzz of the people present there, Dongsik realized he was the vice president of Gadel Food Company known as the Big Money Hunter. Behind Michael there was a young man with dark skin and white hair who looked very familiar. Dongsik immediately came to ask why Chris was here when there was no mission on the 38th floor. He scratched his head and ears. Because he knew he had just snatched Dongsik's connection, he explained that he was asked by her to take Michael to Mia's traveling place. Damn, they still have to compete with big companies. That's right, a station of 10 of 500. But Dongsik was determined to get the second basket of tomatoes. Equal to 35 more tower money. Dongsik quickly shouted 60, but Michael stuck his hand above 100 for even. He shook the team member as if he wanted to get some money out of it, but it didn't work because he had already closed the second round for 100 dong. On Tuesday, Michael didn't even wait for Catwoman to call out the price so he paid 100 dong. So 300 tower coins get all 1,500 coins. Dongsik collapsed to the ground in disappointment, no longer the noble father image in his daughter's eyes. Unlike other people who come to the tower to make money, Michael only comes here to buy cherry tomatoes. Holding the ripe tomatoes in his hand, he felt very satisfied with the quality he bought today. Then he called everyone down to the first floor to return to where the traders had just left. 2 girls came looking for tangerines the other day. He realized it was the people who gave him soup as a reward. Then I happily tried to remember what this girl's name was. I'm like Boha, the girl's name is Soha, but anyway, she's good at remembering that much. Then he held out a bar of soup and asked if he could take another photo. I really like it but I have to refuse outright. In return, he needed what Sejuan called coffee as soon as he saw Soha holding out a packet of instant coffee. Ask for salt and pepper right away. The girl didn't understand because she was a cat so close to salt, pepper and coffee. But I still told him to quit and he didn't understand. At Sejuan Dao, he gave it to him in exchange for him giving him the title of Merchant Mu. For a few hours, lying on Sejuan's lap enjoying the business service was so enjoyable that he accepted it immediately. Taking pictures with Soha was also fun, posing in all sorts of poses. In a way that made the girl extremely happy. It generously raised its long arms to shake hands in thanks. That Soha when touched by that magic hand. I couldn't help but fondle it a few more times. Tangerine didn't understand what this girl was doing. His question made Soha confused and immediately let go. Then offered 3 reward soup bars just to be able to touch them. He took it and curiously asked if the person liked touching his palm. It's not because humans don't have such soft hands that I feel like being touched is another blessing. Besides, Cats in the outside world don't like humans touching their mangosteens, but it seems like tangerines don't know anything. He couldn't have imagined that a person who likes to touch his flesh would call it a lucky hand. Soha Tien's friend asked Tangerine if she could take a photo with her. The pepper was given to her just now. He immediately agreed to be the cute cat in the photo. As soon as he finished, his 2 arms stretched out bluntly, asking humanity to leave the lucky hand. As long as you give the reward soup, you can feel free to touch it. So just move your arms forward. Tangerine has received a bunch of items. At this rate it will soon enjoy business service within 24 hours. He forgot there was a more important task to do. Soha sat in one place attentively posting photos on her face. Then I was asked where it came from. What are you doing? Tangerine doesn't know Soha just posted a picture of it on social networks. Just asked her if she was from a place called Korea. I could smell the familiar scent on her, so I knew she said it with a proud look on her face. Then smiled and asked if she could help me with something. How can Soha refuse this cute cat? Thanks to the growth in the number of bee colonies, Sijuan's tomato flower fields are much busier. Accompanied by the amount of honey released is increasing day by day. Sijuan's beekeeping skills also increased. Soon, he went to middle school very smoothly. The queen bee has not been seen anywhere these days. It seems like she is in a new generation. But the system also allows Sijuan to be expanded into 2 groups. As long as the number of bees increases, he can split them into 2. In addition, Sijuan needs to find another honey container that only has a plastic bottle, but it won't work. Now he returns to farming. Just pulled a large carrot out of the soil. Sijuan called the rabbits to come have dinner with him. The crowd lost their sparkle as they looked at the first regular carrot harvested after the lamb Noyet incident. Because this group of very agile people, the number is greater than each other, everyone can eat a tuber to their heart's content. I don't know who to study. The rabbit family puts a carrot on his head and faces Sijuan. He kneels like he worships a god. I hope he's not an idiot or a poor god. Once finished, they gathered together next to the fire to have a drink. The carrot in Sijuan's hand is many times larger than the carrot in the real world. Also has the effect of improving eyesight, reducing 10 grams of fat and increasing agility by 0.1 points in 10 minutes. If you want to accumulate 10 times to get 1 point, you have to eat 10 vegetables in a row within 1 hour even if you are level E. But it seems that carrots are agile and have more uses than other vegetables. After enjoying, they went back to work. By placing all the carrots on the cart, stir in a layer of preserved green onions. The number of carrots he planted at one time must now be 700. Seeing the squid lying face down on the ground, Sijuan thought it had collected too much and was tired. Turns out this kid was cunning to secretly eat more carrots. But the archive is full, so Sijuan has to stop adding more. The status window kept flashing, indicating that he had reached level 10. Opened a new mission, but the mission appeared too strange. Normally, Sijuan only had a mission given by the dragon to force him to pay tribute to food and drink. Yet next to it there is another tower management window that is not related to this task. Because this is a level 10 player's task that must be passed to receive the new player's character and then be increased to level 11. It's nothing too new. Sijuan had heard of hunters accepting quests, hunt and kill monsters from different floors. But he was a farmer, so the mission would definitely be completely different from what he had heard. Indeed, the system requiring him to expand 50 square meters of farm land seemed simple to Sijuan because the current cultivated area allowed him to comfortably grow crops. The mission is quickly completed with a reward of 10 tower coins. There is a lot of land that comes with a professional characteristic, but it cannot be counted as arable land. He and the rabbits had to dig holes to plant seeds in 50 square meters to the point that Hobbit Top had no more strength to object to the reward. For every new square meter expanded, Sijuan will receive farming experience points. But now that he has faced a confrontation, he has no strength to plant a new one. So I gathered my things and my green onion bed. Bye-bye, the rabbits went back to the cave to go to sleep. But when they worked hard and came home, they were pushed away by a hand. The husband rabbit shook his head vigorously. Then he slammed the door and refused to let the kids in. Suddenly being kicked out like that, 5 of them were crying, others were banging on the door. Turns out they had been living in the same house with their parents for a long time. When I reached adulthood, I was forced to go out and live independently, but now I'm almost dead tired. AI wants to dig a hole. Sejun generously asked if he wanted to sleep on the green onion mattress with him. Of course, the kids agreed. As soon as they lay down in each corner, the two rabbits each held one cheek. Rubbing the smooth white hair against his face makes him feel like he's getting high with the word E, and it's fine to keep it that way. Sejun felt the warmth spread in his soul on the 38th floor. If Captain Dongsik is not happy, if he can't buy tomatoes, his daughter will definitely nag him. Sighing, Soha turned around and brought Tangerine with him to attract his attention. Ask immediately after the merchant cat appeared here again. Quiet has something to say. He asked if Dongsik was the leader of the people from Korea. He reached out his hand and suddenly asked if he could make a contract with me. Tangerine gave him a prepared contract with only a few simple lines on it and gave it to Park Sejun's family in San District. Give 50 million and say that Sejun is working in the tower. In return, he took a bag of 50 coins and said this was his reward, but what caught Dongsik's attention more was the merchant cat. Add 200 more cherry tomatoes. Dongsik stood up immediately. Money is fleeting, cherry tomatoes are forever. If I bring this much home, my daughter will definitely love her father the most in the world. Just thinking about it makes tears flow. But Dongsik was still awake and asked again who Sejun was. Instead of telling the pharmacist that he was a hunter, why didn't he go out of the Tangerine Tower himself and know who Sejun was? But he stopped him first. Nso's boss on the 99th floor is an absolute secret that cannot be told, so he had to make up a story. Sejun saved my life on the 40th floor, so I'm doing chores to repay the favor. On Dongsik's floor, he fought monsters and wanted to get hemorrhoids, but he was only 38 and he had already reached the 40th floor when he discovered this magic cherry tomato. Why did Tangerine refuse to reveal more? Just said it was a secret that couldn't be revealed further. Dongsik didn't dare to ask more. But he found it very strange, all kinds of people could only fight up to the 38th floor. Park Sejun, who was he that could go so far alone? If he was a solo hunter, he was definitely an extremely talented seed. Thinking so, Dongsik considered keeping in touch with Park Sejun. When can we attract this talented hunter to join our team? Not to mention he is also the one who discovered this virtual Canadian tomato. Dongsik agreed to make a contract immediately. According to the decision, he signed his name. The system confirms that both parties are partners and that's it. Although this contract is still valid outside the tower, meaning the system knows whether Dongsik is completed or not, he still reminds the merchant cat to come back here in 10 days so I can report on the progress of the work. Kim Dongsik will take on the responsibility of informing Park Sejun's parents. But he's the only one who's so eloquent, but he's been in this tower for almost half a month and doesn't miss anything. The next day the rabbits will each have their own house and will bring Sejun to celebrate the housewarming, but he doesn't know that all rabbits have the ability to build houses like that. As soon as I saw it, my eyes widened in surprise. The 2 floors would be better than the house my parents had built. He gave the house a roof made of green onions and walls covered with solid soil. The shovel rabbit and the sickle rabbit must have worked extremely hard. They are proud of their work and they are really smart. Next to where the rabbit is lying, there is also a room with a large door used to rest between working hours. He patted their heads and praised them, making them all very happy. It's been a few days since my parents moved out of the house and their construction is not as fast, but the scale is much bigger. Sejun excitedly invited the whole family to celebrate the housewarming party with carrots and tomato smoothies harvested from the farm. Let's raise a glass to the rabbits who have worked so hard. A glass of tomatoes to thank them for their hard work to supplement protein for the whole family. This is a great idea. Eat carrots, make a hole to make a cup, drink all the water, then chew the whole cup. No need to wash like his thermos. Looking over at the rabbit couple, I saw them cuddling each other. It's so cute and cuddly. But Sejun felt something strange. They looked like a married couple, yet they kicked the kids out. Do you ever want to make another batch? So. He looked down at the rabbits and said it looks like you're about to have a baby to hold, but the squid doesn't understand anything. It's still a baby. Status window suddenly appears. It's been a month since Sejun knew, so the new seed store has reopened. Just when he wanted to improve the family's meals, he immediately opened the table to see what foods were available this month. Fortunately, this month the price did not increase too much. He can choose between 100 potato seeds for 5 coins, 100 strawberry seeds for half a coin or 1000 lettuce seeds for only 0.1 coins. Seeing the word lettuce, Sejuan's eyes lit up with excitement. But suddenly I remembered that he didn't have any meat here that he wanted to eat with lettuce. So the choice is only potatoes or strawberries with lots of money, but choosing one of these two varieties still gives him a headache. Sejuan was afraid of being hungry, so he still prioritized starch. The system pops out a series of thank you for using the store's services. Gave him a brown package containing seeds that were completely different from the previous ones. Because it's so damn big, guys. It looked like a bag of rice fell straight on Sejuan's head. 100 potatoes fall on the head and only water logs out. Luckily he dodged in time. But the rabbit and his wife were so startled by this guy that Sejuan had to apologize. Then pick up the fallen potatoes. Each tuber looks quite good quality. Neither broken nor damaged. Sejuan enjoys the thought of eating steamed or mashed sweet potatoes. Using flour to make a cake, I want to salivate. Tomorrow's break time, let's focus on planting 100 raw potatoes. When the audience heard that they were about to have new food, they immediately and enthusiastically agreed. Suddenly I remembered that I had another employee wandering around outside. Sejuan wondered if Tangerine had finished the work he assigned. At that time, it was in the trade district where people were bustling. All kinds of animals, from animals to humanoid shapes. Everyone gathers here to shop and have fun. Tangerine was bowing his head into a stall full of miscellaneous bottles and dishes, looking for the things Sejuan gave him to make. Frying pan in one hand and cooking pot in the other. He brought a few other things and asked for the price. As soon as he heard 1.6 dong, he immediately asked for a discount. The boss laughed. Why had he never seen this young man here before? Open for new arrivals, price is 1.5. Tangerine wrinkles the forehead without eyebrows, begging for a little more discount. The owner flatly refused, saying it would be unprofitable to sell. So I'll just go to the store and buy it. Tangerine just took 2 steps and the boss jumped in front of him and offered the price 1.3. If you calmly pay 1 coin, if you don't accept it anymore, then it's considered that we are not destined to be together. The owner just agreed to it and put some money on it. Then he picked up the items and left, immediately looked at it and thought it was a green bean. It turned out to be a chicken. The shop owner couldn't swallow a single piece of the tangerine. After running for a while, the boss looked down at the amount of money left for him. It's hard to understand what kind of juice it is with the sweaty fingerprints of a tangerine and nothing more. It was leaning against the wall panting like a dog. This was the first time he did it and in the end he didn't get caught and turned upside down. Quiet had to praise himself. He excitedly shouted and successfully bought things like a smart person. He was able to do that because before riding the bike, he opened a class to teach basic skills so he wouldn't become an idiot when being overcharged at the market. First, you have to pay the price no matter how much people give you. Next, leave if people refuse. Third step, if the shipper stops you, give a lower number than at the beginning to close the deal. At that time, I studied very hard and immediately succeeded. Just like Sejuan said. It turns out that he is a smart housewife because he specializes in buying discounted goods to save money, so let's call it full of experience. Now I think I'm already a businesswoman who knows how to reduce prices. I'm praising myself for being so good. Suddenly I heard a familiar voice ringing in a small alley nearby. Scarum was introducing goods from outside the weekly tower to a certain merchant doing business. He lost to a guy with the sales closing questions of a networker like he was screaming that this was a private secret. Because I like you, I told you that I just saw this guy. Tangerine bled 3 times. 6 Chuang rushed to the goblin immediately. What an evil name. Defrauding new businessmen all day long is unforgivable. Let the veteran Tangerine come to the rescue of the poor newcomer. He shouted loudly, pointing straight at him and calling his name, making Scarum completely startled. Boldly approaching, rolling up his sleeves even though he was only wearing a shawl, he finally found him. Scarum's shoulder blade and Tangerine cordially asked Hien where he was going. It's been a while since I've seen the items I gave you, are they any good? Blah blah blah. He was pushed away immediately by pretending to be intimate with him after having tricked him. Be careful. This guy is a fraud. Scarum jumped up immediately. How dare you call him a scammer when this merchant here is selling you very good items at such a cheap price? Tangerine pointed straight at the person who was being deceived by Starum and clearly said, don't believe that this jar contains magic. This is just a jar that is designed with its inner and outer layers spaced apart to run the heat exchange process, causing the temperature to drop. Just slower. These are all the words that Sejuan said. He knows them by heart, so now he's confident. Just Scarum said, oh my god. Don't shoot trash at other people anymore. The goblin is sweating profusely due to being exposed but still has to pretend to be a salvager and all. Who would have thought that something would be harder than a hot stone, and he waved his hand and called the guards to come here quickly to see if someone was cheating this new trader. Scarum was afraid of losing face, grabbed the vase, pointed at Quiet's face and cursed and left immediately. Saw the scammer go away. The new Tangerine told the new person to be careful not to fall into the trap. He bowed his head timidly, thanked him, and asked the name of the person who helped him. Acting like a hero to save the beauty, he said his name, saying goodbye to that girl. I thought the author had opened up a hopeless love story for the Tangerine named Buinam. But under that blue hood is a pair of red fox eyes full of intrigue. The mission is over, everyone come out here. From the roof on both sides of the sky, shadows shot down. Landing on the ground were 3 dogs wearing hats like ninja dogs that the singers had just summoned. The 3 of them knelt in front of the fox and she asked in a loud voice, didn't they tell you to eliminate all factors that affect the mission? The white dog was scared to death but still had to try to answer to his superiors that the 100m area around here had been checked and he didn't know where the absent-minded Catwoman had come from. The other side bowed their heads and admitted their fault because they weren't careful. Agent Zerat Jack Chan is an agent assigned to the secret Ba Province organization of the Merchant Alliance leading the Bakara mission. It's been several months. She turned around and told her to go back to headquarters first and think about it later. Please write me 100 letters of apology to reflect on today's mistakes. Write 100 letters of apology. After speaking, Zeros turned around and left, leaving the 3 dogs trembling and hugging each other in fear. Recently, the intelligence organization received information about many scams. After a long investigation, it was discovered that they were all made by Scarum goblins. This guy seems extremely professional as he can continuously extract items that can only be obtained from outside the tower. Zirez's intelligence team gave me a way to get the goblins' belongings from. We must capture Scaram with evidence in hand to convict him. So today, Zerat pretended to be a novice merchant and contacted Scarum. Who would have thought that right when he was about to catch him red-handed, the orange cat would jump out from nowhere and disrupt the situation. Zeros thought carefully to change the plan. The first thing to do was to find out the name of the cat from before. It seems like he and Scarum have some grudge against each other. Investigating that orange cat definitely has a lot of information. Tangerine didn't know it was in people's sights and was still tossing and turning on its way back to the prehistoric cave. Where Sejuan is showing the rabbit family how to grow potatoes to create a new crop. You have to cut it like this. He was showing you how to cut this potato with a sickle. It nodded as if it understood. Swing the sickle in your hand right away and keep it hot. Successfully cut the potato into 4 equal parts. After wetting the soil, place a cut potato color down here. After wetting the soil, place a cut potato color down here. Fill it with soil and you're done. Do you think I'm good? Rabbit planted 100 tubers and divided them into 400 sweet potato sprouts because I joined at that time and now I know how to do such a powerful job. So every square meter of planting is done. Sejuan also receives an additional 10 experience points, although not as much as harvesting vegetables, but if you like to be small, just consider it as outside income. Now that the potato field is finished, Sejuan invites the rabbits to stir up the sweet potatoes to eat. But before you dig the potatoes, do you guys remember what to do? Just look at it and you'll see that you've forgotten it all. Sejuan always looked over the potato fields and reminded them that the sweet potato sprouts needed to be cut off when digging up the tubers to plant new plants. Brings back memories of working hard. The rabbits were completely bored and collapsed on the ground. The squid ran over and said something to them, causing the brothers to look up immediately. Turns out it was talking about Sejuan finding out he got bonus points for growing his own sweet potato sprouts. After that, let me make the rabbits happy and laugh at each other. Sejuan is already stuck in his stomach. Then he bent down and asked, "You guys, did you think I was going to plant sprouts to earn experience points? If so, then no, farming is closely related to time, so you can't delay it just for the sake of a few experience points. That's it, the boss is happy." But the kids are no longer happy. I had to cut sweet potato sprouts to prepare for further planting. So, each person has one hand to push the bearer to collect the sprouts in one place. Together with Sejuan, shovel the soil and water the new plants. It was almost a whole day later when Sejuan raised his head, covered in sweat. "Receive congratulations from the system. Has successfully expanded 500 square meters of tick-long sweet potatoes. Now comes the question of whether or not to plant alone, but the system still calculates enough experience points for him." The husband rabbit raised his hand cheerfully. The rabbit's wife also raised her hand and jumped. Then set up the guitar and divided into 2 rows. The 2 buttocks danced to some Vinahau rhythm that Sejuan couldn't hear. After a while, they changed formation to circle around Sejuan. But he didn't understand anything until the system announced that it was a dance to pray for a good harvest before harvesting sweet potatoes. Sejuan realized how eager they were to harvest this tuber. "So let's start digging." But the ground just opened up. He saw a beam of light from down there. It seemed like someone had placed a light truss there. The more Sejuan opened up, the more light he saw, blinding his eyes. "You said this tower let Nguyen set up LED lights down there." "Oh, not a sweet potato called solar sweet potato because it has absorbed enough natural sunlight. Eating it will burn an ounce of body fat and become immune to all types of cold within 24 hours. Even though he was only level E, the system informed him that he had successfully created a new plant variety. Doing Sejuan is so fucking amazing. As a hardworking farmer, I accidentally dug up a potato that was brighter than my future. That afternoon in the outside world. Noisy traffic passing by. There was a pair of black shoes placed on the ground. Who else but Captain Kim Dong-sik got out of the car and looked back. An apartment complex Fine Tom Park Sejuan's house. His hand was holding a large bundle of gold. Can anyone guess what it is? The owner of the request, Sejuan, was still with the rabbits in front of a golden sweet potato. He still hasn't recovered from the shock of his achievement in creating a new plant variety. So the system answered that it was the tower manager's new authority that allowed him to have other people who wanted to grow this variety, requiring Sejuan's consent. So he has a monopoly on this plant variety, so if he sells solar sweet potatoes, people will not be able to grow their own fields, so the main character's rights are different. Sejuan covered it in the ground right away. No matter how curious he was, he had to plant it down to propagate up. Let's continue digging sweet potatoes. The potato digging work then went very smoothly. Each sweet potato plant produces even more than last time, only a maximum of 5 tubers. The rabbit will push and push again, wanting to become thinner but still not finished. To reward the rabbits after a hard day's work, Sejuan grilled piranhas and sweet potatoes wrapped in fragrant onions. Sejuan pulled the potatoes out of the fire. Poke a few holes to let the steam escape. Then the rabbits pursed their mouths and blew to cool it down. As soon as I broke the potato in half, I saw it was golden yellow and fragrant with sweet smoke. The rabbits couldn't help but salivate. Each child picked up half a tuber and ate it deliciously. Everyone winked with sparkling eyes. Chew it so fast it's clean. The status window told him that the building manager was very hungry but was still patiently waiting for him to finish feeding the rabbits. So Sejuan immediately sent him 10 hot grilled tubers as a gift. I still have a few tubers left in front of me. Sejuan will immediately return with the help of Sickle Rabbit. The giant dragon's hand holding the sweet potato made it look much smaller. It has claws that help it tear off the shell more easily. Throw the whole tuber into your mouth at once for 10 cura and leave quickly. Shake the empty plate. I'm thinking about whether I should ask for some more sweet potatoes or not. In the sphere, he saw Sejuan placing something on the onion plate. He placed those things at a fairly even distance from each other. Looking closely, the sweet potatoes were cut into pieces and dried. Sejuan is explaining how to make a rabbit house. The rabbit was holding a sickle, waiting for his orders. It threw a peeled potato high into the air. He waved his hand and slashed them to divide them into several equal pieces. Falls to the ground like a genuine cutter. Just the right size that Sejuan needed. He picked it up and couldn't help but praise the Sickle Rabbit. Suddenly the status window popped up asking why Sejun threw away the pieces of potato he craved. Where can I throw away the serum? I'm drying these pieces to make a new snack. Have you ever heard of dried sweet potatoes? Give him cheese and maybe even make sweet potato shakes. Cheese too. Inside the apartment where Dong-sik lived. As soon as he rang the bell, someone's voice rang out. He asked right away. Is this Park Sejun's house? The sound of Hwin's footsteps echoed in the house. The door was opened by a young man, behind whom were two middle-aged people panicking. Ask Sejun, are you back? Realizing that not all the people stopped immediately. A moment later, Sejun's mother served a plate of fruit to the guests. Looking at the man who came in a formal black vest, Sejun's mother was worried that he didn't suit her taste, but Dong-sik didn't care about that. Sejun's father opened his mouth and sighed first, saying his son had been missing for a long time. Dong-sik showed the black card in front. At this point, I introduced myself as the leader of Team 5 of the Phoenix Guild. Sejun, his younger brother, heard the Phoenix team and immediately jumped up to see the business card. I can't believe that Dong-sik, one of the people representing the nation, appears here. He's a top hunter, mom and dad. Dong-sik humbly only smiled, but his parents and younger brother Sae were all upset. The father demanded to bring out all the delicious food before being honored, making Dong-sik shy to death. If you are a hunter, can I ask if Sejun's son is in the tower? When did the kid go there and why didn't he come home but he came here? At this point, Sejun's parents were afraid something would happen to their son, so Dong-sik came to take over. He pulled out a letter from his pocket saying he was here because of Sejun's request. Placed the white envelope on the table. His whole family turned pale. Mom started to sob and then the whole family cried loudly, "Oh Sejun, my child, why are you so unfilial that you died while your parents were still alive?" Oh, the scene where the one with white hair sees off the one with blue hair. Oh wait, Dong-sik quickly waved that hand, it's not like he's going to die. Only then did the whole family stop crying. Open the envelope to see. Who says there's no sign of a bank outside? Inside is a bill worth 50 million that makes people think the will doesn't have to say how Sejun's father took away his soul. Dong-sik said he felt sorry for suddenly entering the tower, so he sent word home that he was fine and asked me to bring this to his family. His father's expression changed and he immediately held up the check and laughed. This kid is just like me. She knew that wherever she went, she would be successful, but the mother was still suspicious and asked why Sejun didn't come home on his own. Instead she had to ask him to tell her that he said he was stuck on a mission and couldn't go out. Actually, it's normal for hunters, so there's nothing to worry about. After telling Sejun about his business, he turned to ask Sejun, his younger brother, who was respectfully looking at Dong-sik like an idol. Just now I heard your parents say that Sejun is losing interest, meaning that the family doesn't know that your brother entered the tower. Yes, that's right, our whole family suddenly lost contact with him about 5 months ago with no news at all. I contacted the National Awakening Association but they said there was no name Park Sejun, or did they use an alias like Haan? There are also many people who come in there with the nickname of opening the coffin lid and kissing you one last time or sitting on the toilet screaming at you. Will he help the family visit one more time? Looking at Sejun's family's happy expression, Dong-sik can confirm that this is the first time they heard the news about their eldest son going missing. The strange thing is that in the past 10 years since the tower appeared, no one has been able to climb that high alone. So, in your head, you have come up with the most convincing hypothesis that Sejun is the most talented hunter ever in history? Dan Lin Tran took the opportunity to ask Dong-sik's team if they were recruiting extras outside the tower. My father immediately punched me in the head, trying to blow my brother's head off. You're so dark in the tower that night, why are you hanging out here? Ahem, tower hunter is a very dangerous profession that can lead to death. The guild does not encourage a house to have more than one hunter. Dong-sik, seeing that his work was done, he immediately asked permission to stand up and refuse Sejun's father's invitation to dinner. After leaving the tower, he went to his house first and hadn't returned to see his family yet, so he didn't stay. Dong-sik said goodbye and went straight to the car. Let out a long breath. Saw the status window notifying the contract was completed. Done, now it's time to rest. He was driving and his daughter called to ask if he had returned to the outside world. Dong-sik's face became happier. Guess what Dad brought home for the child? If she knew there was a basket of hundreds of cherry tomatoes made this time, she would be very happy. Things in the outside world change every day. The same is true inside Sejuan's prehistoric cave. He looked at the tops of 3 very bruised eggplants that had begun to grow roots in the water. Then he brought them back to the land that had been tilled. The pile of carrot tops is also counted as planting, and the system gives a few points to upgrade farmer skills. These are leftover carrots eaten by the rabbits a few days ago. When you see buds and roots growing, Sejuan will plant it in the ground, but don't think it will grow a new carrot. Because it has already been eaten, only the top part will grow. He will have to wait until the carrots bloom and then harvest their seeds. Looking at the flowers in the garden, seeing the uncle's attachment made Sejuan feel that he loves farming more than the work that requires hard work and will bring about achievements and clear results over time. The tower manager asked if you had finished making the dried sweet potatoes. Not sitting looking at the carrots, he asked for the sweet potatoes. But then Sejuan stood up and went to check. The rabbits were curious and clung to him to see what he was like. But at the same time the sweet potatoes were all dry. Sejuan took a big bite. Try it until it's hot. As soon as I put it in my mouth, I took a bite and heard a blistering sound. The outer shell of the axillary fruit is crispy but the inside still retains moisture and sweetness. He and the rabbits felt maximum irresistible happiness. The sunlight here has created dried sweet potatoes without using an oven, making its taste even sweeter. Sejuan quickly put it in his shopping cart and put it there when he was bored so he could sip on it. I'm busy with my hands and mouth. Does the tower manager have any right to jump out? The manager wants to eat so he asked, what's taking so long? But Seju stared at the dried sweet potatoes and didn't rush to give them to the manager. He looked in his backpack and told him to wait a bit and always brought the food in an onion bowl. It looked so rural. Sejuan wanted to do something different today. No matter what the manager brought him, he immediately put it in his mouth. Just a moment later Sejuan returned with a neatly tied bag of sweet potatoes. Call it a delicious dried sweet potato gift package, please eat it. Doesn't it look cute? Previously, I worked part-time at a packaging factory, so now I invite the manager to enjoy dried sweet potatoes that are both delicious and beautiful, while also retaining moisture. If wrapped like this, too. Suddenly, there was an unusually obedient silence when Sejuan thought he had done something wrong. Then the tower manager's thank you message appears on the window. Why is it so superficial? Sejuan thought for a moment, thinking that the winged dragon would like it very much. He really liked it, but the dragon held the bag of sweet potatoes in his hand and suddenly felt like he couldn't swallow it. How could he eat something so cute? The scary overreaction was just a bag of things from before. Sejuan spent a whole day sitting and sipping dried sweet potatoes with the rabbits. I still wonder why I dried 40 bulbs the other day. Why are they all gone now? Suddenly the song flew in and called Sejuan. Gave him something golden yellow with an extremely happy expression. He didn't understand what was being said, only the system jumped out and said congratulations, you have received 2 parts of corn pollen, leveling your bee proficiency to level 2. It turned out that his cornfield was in flowering season before it bore fruit. These guys are busy with other fruits and vegetables, but no needs more time so Sejuan doesn't pay attention. Now looking back, they've already bloomed in an entire field. But this is the first time I always know that there is no honey in the corn cave, but bees only collect pollen. But he has heard of some functional foods that use pollen as a supplement. So he excitedly put it in his mouth and tried to chew it. Each taste is a bit bitter, but overall it has a sweet, candy-like feeling. He turned around and thanked the queen bee. I immediately saw a bunch of worker bees come and drop a bunch of chalk into my palm. There was even more joy when Tangerine finally returned after a series of days spent wandering around the tower floors. The cat's cheerful face suddenly turned pale when it realized. My sister was staring at me. The cat stepped back, his fur bristled all over, looking alert and afraid of the queen bee. Oh my God, no matter what Sejuan advised him, he didn't pay attention. So the proactive tone sprinkled some gold to welcome it home. He immediately rubbed his head and nose on Sejuan's t-shirt, making him have to push the cat away immediately. I only have a shirt, my friend, I don't want to be shirtless. If the allergy is gone, it will turn right away. I exceeded Sejuan's delivery target last day. He immediately asked about breaking the news to his family. Being shown the completed contract tasks, the family received the money he sent. A few days later, Tangerine will come see Dongsik to check again to make sure, making Sejun feel very secure. Before, he was a poor young man who couldn't help his parents. Now they wouldn't have thought in their wildest dreams that the son who earned 50 million for them would now be farming with rabbits in the tower. Leave this place tomorrow. Tell your parents what kind of expression they will have. He is quite curious. Think of the little Sudan kid who teases his brother all day long and his father loves purple flowers and hates lies. Maybe his father's current farming talent was passed down to him, so his mother suddenly remembers the huge pot of kimchi stew every time she comes home to visit. His parents took care of Sejun very well, so now that he remembers, he suddenly feels terribly homesick. Squid ran from nowhere and placed her hand on his thigh. He reached back. Pai Pai Pa Pa pointed to the rabbit houses and the bees and tangerines that were already here. Sejun happily loves them now he has his own family. Plus, this cat is treated like family by the dedicated staff, but I don't call you Sejun. The cat opened his space bag and reported to him the camp's achievements. This time, 50 coins were deducted as a fee to send money home and 14 coins were used to buy small things. It still has a total of 208 engines. It's a big bag of copper coins and I'm still amazed. The tangerine was poured out for him, rattling the pans and pots. How long has it been since Sejun has seen something related to human civilization? The rabbits don't know what these things are, they just know they can't eat them, so they play with them. The cast iron pot he held in his hand was manufactured by the tower, so there was a certificate of information showing up, but there was absolutely no production information. He glanced at another cowhide thing lying on the ground. Discovered that this was a dagger produced in this tower in a genuine cow shell. The status window says this knife can only be used by people level 10 or higher, but other information is unavailable. June picked up the knife and asked Tangerine where he got this. Just as he was holding up a bamboo pinwheel for the rabbit to explain, he got it from the lottery corner where the blacksmith was selling it at a discount. Why does the lottery sell a dagger at a discount? Even though it qualifies, Sejun doesn't know if he should use it or not. The greedy manager warned against using unapproved items to avoid getting into trouble. Today he was kind enough to say he could appraise them for you. Before the worm cart was okay or not, he immediately jumped the mission and sent the dagger to the management tower to evaluate the normally unavailable part. Additional bonus task to give a package of dried sweet potatoes to the tower manager as a thank you. The reward is to be assigned by the appraiser, that's all, refuse to lose the appraisal altogether. It sounds ridiculous and not convincing at all. Let's not forget to attach the Tonmin board saying that this mission is not because of craving for dried sweet potatoes, no one believes it. He probably knew the car was shaking and couldn't believe the tower manager's status notification window. Wiping his drool so greedily, Sejun cursed immediately. I just ate a bunch and still talk like I haven't been let down by him. Anyway, Sejun can't use an item without knowing where it comes from and what its uses are. Very quickly, the tower manager took away the plate of golden potatoes and returned the coach's vegetables to him. Its information is now fully available. The knife is made from black iron or mixed with a little platinum, so it is heavier than usual. But very sharp if sharpened regularly. The smith is a level B Black Crow blacksmith, allowing the user to increase speed by 5%. Needless to say, Sejun was surprised. It was obvious that an item of equipment had already been identified. Normal equipment that has been identified for auction costs up to 100 million, which is less because of its level of both precious and rare. But that cat picked it up from a saw lottery. This boy is so interesting. I thought Tangerine was an innocent cat that was easy to seduce. Turned out to be a truly talented cat. In the woods, on the 99th floor, quite a distance from Sejun's prehistoric cave, a red-furred horn shook in a clump of grass. His nose turned up and he inhaled something. The red bear turned to look. While the cat and the scooper were devouring the bonus soup, Sejun was busy testing the newly purchased product. He tightened his grip on the handle of the knife with a steady gaze like a real knife expert. Gently cut 2 basic lines into the green onion. The leaves flew away along with the stem still rooted in the ground. Serum laugh out loud to fight the cold and ask if you guys think my skills are good enough. Bunny Dad hurriedly went to harvest onion leaves while the squid was commanding the white rabbits to clap and cheer for the uncle to help them recover. "Boss, why do you like this knife?" Boss Sejuan excitedly raised a like, which must be called amazing. "It's so hard for you, you must be a bestseller." The handsome Tangerine angrily stood up and attacked. It was obvious that he had promised me, but it made Sejuan laugh. Patting his head, "He's only been practicing business for a while but he's not so hung up." Tangerine exhaled and used the mangosteen to touch Sejuan's hand to let it go this time, but next time it won't be like that again. I thought he was a stupid kid, but it turned out he was very calculating. Look at this naked guy. There's no one who wouldn't fall for this thing. Sejuan couldn't stand it anymore and squeezed Tangerine's hand, making him yell at him not to molest a good guy. Suddenly the cat fell into his arms and he was so generous that he even planned to give it a bonus soup, making the squid rabbit next to him feel sad. Why does nature have such a bias towards tangerines? Mr. Boss is just a normal person. The human heart is emitting a series of orgasms. All humans must kneel before my hands, ha ha ha. What a fool, I just need this golden hand so I don't have to worry about starving to death. Why don't I quickly bring it here for me to enjoy? I don't have time to play around. Only now does Sejuan realize that there is something wrong here. Is this cat trying to play with me? Frowned and lifted the tangerine up high. Then he lowered it to the ground, making him laugh. Hong Mang's heart. It's been an hour, Sejuan, fighting against the cold, contemptuously said that you're about 10 years old and you're trying to trick me. There's no door, honey. Angrily, I stood up like a squid. Standing nearby, I covered my mouth and chuckled. It's a shameful cat. I can't stand it. The baby wanted to be cuddled longer. He rushed forward to bite Sejuan's pants, but it was no longer effective. He coldly turned away without even looking at him. The cat angrily reached into his pocket and prepared to play his trump card. Mr. Sejuan, look here. After saying that, I threw all the bottles, jars, bags, and boxes of all kinds of ostriches on the ground. Seeing the boss pick it up with a confused look, I was very pleased. He raised his face and asked in a condescending tone. He saw that I was talented and had not taken a few pictures yet. He brought this much. How could Sejuan put a word of tangerine in? His head was kneeling on the ground, holding a jar of salt and pouring it into his palm. Sticking out my tongue to taste something precious that I haven't touched in nearly half a year. It's so salty. This is the first time I have tasted the salty taste of salt and I feel so happy, and also the spicy taste of pepper. Sejuan was so happy that he cried. It's best to take advantage of the opportunity. He walked toward Sejuan. Asked, what do you think, is it worth another 2 hours as a merchant? Sejuan left behind a pile of things he had just brought back. Carrying tangerines up and spinning with joy for 2 hours, 24 hours are enough. Just in the morning, a strange white smoke rose from the cave entrance, and the sound of someone sprinkling salt on a fragrant piece of grilled fish. Sejuan put the newly marinated fish on a skewer with green onions soaked in na and sang songs. Waiting for the fragrant smoke to reach the rabbits' living area, they were overwhelmed by the fragrant smell of food. When I woke up, everyone ignored me and felt sleepy. But they all went out to see what Sejuan was doing. He invited the rabbit family to join him for breakfast with an excited expression on his new dishes. A hearty breakfast like the whole family is having a party. Grilled fish on skewers with onions, dried potatoes and grilled cherry tomatoes, plus some familiar fish rolls with grilled onions. All of these things are new because Sejuan has salt and pepper. He gave each rabbit a skewer or two and told them to try the new seasoning. The white rabbits still chewed, but they couldn't stand being burned by pepper. Only the black rabbit liked it so much that he told them he was your son. That's a neighbor. Sejuan looked over at the mandarin who was snoring and smelling so good but he refused to wake up. He wholeheartedly picked up a fish skewer and lifted the cat up. Oh my God, I woke up immediately when I saw it. Tangerine's fur was ruffled, alert and angry. Saying that Sejuan was insulting the fish god or cat god, he gave him a skewer of steamed fish with spices. Turns out he doesn't like eating steamed fish with salt. Sitting in Sejuan's lap with a grilled fish with light onions and jelly just made him stop sulking. After breakfast, Sejuan and the rabbit family worked hard in the cherry tomato field like every other day today. Instead of picking them by hand, Sejuan used his scissors to cut a branch down. I saw the system pop up and tell me that my experience points had increased. Sejuan discovered that when holding this knife, all his skills increased by 5%, not just every agility point. He excitedly held out a bunch of freshly cut tomatoes to the crow-faced Tangerine, who didn't understand why a great cat like him had to stand here holding a bag of extra space to harvest. This cat is funny. I'm the president and still have to work. Tangerine was startled and opened his mouth to ask if Sejuan was the president. What else? Sejuan told him to hurry up and sell his whole body. Dear President, how dare you disobey him? Tangerine put his drawstring backpack on his shoulder and nodded, saying that he had learned something new today and now went to sell immediately. In his heart, he mapped out a roadmap for promotion in the shortest possible time, and then he would become the president of this two-member corporation, monopolizing Park Sejun's hands and knees forever. Seeing that it was ready for the 10-day trip, he had to speak up and remind him. Don't forget to stop by and buy the things you told him to do. And don't forget to stop by the forge and pick out the things you like at the lottery. Sejuan wants to test his talent for choosing merchants' items again. He can't let it fade away. He waved goodbye to Sejuan and was ready to go. Soon he jumped to the mouth of the cave. But that's all for now. Sejuan will have to go back to the ripe tomatoes first. Just after cutting 6 fruits, the system suddenly popped up to receive 90 experience points. Only then did Sejuan notice that the thing in his hand was a grade D magical cherry tomato with a shelf life double that of regular ones, up to 60 days. Most notably, eating one fruit can reduce fat by 20 grams and increase 0.2 experience points. So not only does the tomato taste sweeter than before, all the uses of this tomato are doubled because it is a D-level item. Wait for Sejuan to remember that this tomato leveled up not because of the dagger but because he himself is already a level D farmer. If Tangerine had gone a little later, he could have sold these new tomatoes for more money. That's all. Sejuan asked if he wanted to try them. They looked like these tomatoes were much tastier than the previous ones. I was walking alone in the forest and suddenly felt like I wanted to turn back. The door to the secret room of the Black Tower suddenly opened, and light from the outside cast a shadow looming over the bright cluster of gold, silver, and jewels. In the middle of the room there is a pillar about 1 meter high, on top of which is a shimmering statue. It is the ice statue of the Black Dragon carved from pieces of ice. In the Penguin Kingdom. For such a beautiful statue to be thrown down and broken by a hand, it's not like it's creating anything, it's just making room for something else. Sejuan's gift bag of dried sweet potatoes happily looked at the potato bag. Let it stay in this permanently enchanted warehouse and it will never be damaged. You can stop by and look at it any time you like. He wants to cherish this gift bag because Park Sejun personally made it for him. Having free time, he went down and picked up the ball. He wanted to see what Sejuan was doing right now. Is he making food? Can I have a piece? It turned out that while he was sleeping with the rabbits, he thought to himself, Great Black Dragon, should I go patrol the area for a while? Suddenly from within the sphere it discovered something was wrong. On the rock Sejuan was taking a nap with the rabbit family. Suddenly the window jumped and the alarm bell rang, calling him to wake up quickly. The tower manager said this is not the time to sleep. What are you doing if you don't sleep? He sat up sleepily and suddenly saw a dark shadow looking down from the top of the cave. It was clearly a monster. The ink rabbit crawled onto Sejuan's shoulder and stared at it warily. But the tower manager also wanted to chase this yoke away, so he appeared in the window in front of him, so it must have appeared unexpectedly. That big foot was startled and slipped a bit, falling all the dirt and rocks on the mouth of the cave. Sejuan left the sleepy rabbits behind and the warrior rabbit ran back in panic. At the same time the red thing fell into the hole. It doesn't have the ability to jump on Sejuan's head like a rabbit, but fell straight into his lap, thinking it was a dog. But now Sejuan looked back and realized it was a giant, immature bear. Its eyes were round and sparkling. Looking at the name of the person in front of him, he didn't understand anything. His mouth just made a muffled sound. It's clear what happened, but Sejuan just seems like a stupid idiot. Wondering if this is the cub of the big bear Lam Noyet visited his pitiful den at night. Looking at him, he was so scared that he was psychologically traumatized. Why is the baby so small? His soft red fur beckoned to come down, so Sejuan also let him down to visit the cave. The tower manager asked why Sejuan helped the giant bear cub. How could he know that he had the instinct to run away? Could he have ignored this cave? Chow bang, that 4-story building. The notice board appeared loudly asking Sejuan to chase the bear out of the cave. His mother bear must be looking for her child nearby. Sejuan picked up his armpit again, thought for a moment, then dropped it so the bear could run back to the rabbits and say in a small voice, how could he let it go? Or just leave it here for mom to pick up, good idea. This guy. This is not a kindergarten. Waiting for parents to pick up their children, the window reminds him that the giant red bear has such a big appetite and drinks so much that it eats all the food in the cave. Let's see. Sejuan couldn't believe that he was as tiny as a rabbit. How could he get all the holes? He walked towards the rabbits and suddenly a red puffy thing appeared out of nowhere. The more bold warrior rabbit patted its head and quickly became acquainted with all the rabbits who dared to come closer. While singing and dancing together, the bees flew back to the hive, causing the bear to jump out to welcome their new friend. She didn't pay much attention to it, but her children's eyes were red as if they were having a seizure. This bear is watch out, I'll sting you. These bees will scare you when they see someone strange. The bear immediately ran back to Sejuan and cried loudly. He had to hug it and wave his hand towards the bees, it was nothing but slowly talked. Just then, the red bear cried so hard that Sejuan had to speak up to comfort him. My cubs don't like the bear, so the treatment doesn't interest them at all. But when Sejuan asked for help, she also blew up a balloon filled with enzymes and threw it down. He happily accepted the honey and immediately stopped crying. I know you like it right away. Because I smelled honey, I came here. Isn't it normal for bears to like honey? The system saw Sejuan near the bear but was speechless. Just talking about it makes me so angry. Then he suddenly jumped in front of Sejuan, forcing him to take a look. The new mission appears to chase the red bear out of the cave and rewards a career skill. Refusal is still death but hunger. Moreover, the notice board also made a scary sound, scaring the animals around Sejuan to death. He didn't understand why the tower manager kept chasing away this bear. Let's go for it, it's so tiny it's not worth much to eat. The window shows a simple message that the tower manager is chasing away monsters that are threatening the tower's farmers, but Sejuan doesn't believe it. If it was so reasonable that after that day I would fall into this cave, it was just an unintentional mistake. The announcement jumped out and urged Sejuan to listen. But he stubbornly hugged the red bear that was snuggling in his arms. Suddenly he blurted out a sentence. Someone once told me that falling into this tower was also a mistake. Suddenly, he said that sentence, which made the atmosphere go away. The atmosphere subsided completely. The bees and rabbits didn't dare open their mouths when they saw the change, but the dragon heard him blaming him and didn't speak up. Her eyes showed a trace of discomfort and she decided to let him do whatever he wanted. Sejuan howled when he saw the status window finally disappear. I don't know how much this bear can eat without overdoing it like that. He lifted the cub off of him, intending to persuade it not to be afraid anymore. Who would have thought that the bear cub had been snoring right in his lap without knowing it? So Sejuan placed it on his carpet. This adorable look made him unable to bear it and decided to keep the bear and release it tomorrow. Sejuan was in a deep sleep, wheezing with glue in his mouth. I don't know when my side became empty. The red bear woke up before everyone else to visit the cave alone for a long time. The squid rabbit just woke up and walked out of his house. He didn't know what he saw, but he panicked and his eyes were so confused that he slurred his tongue and shouted Pikachu. Then the rabbit screamed so loudly that Sejuan started to wake up. He scratched his head and sat up to see not just one but many angry rabbit sounds. Then he dragged his sleepy body back to where they were leading his dirty feet. Sejuan looked so horny that he even slept. A tangle of sweet potatoes, carrots, and green onions scattered on the ground. The food storage area under the layer of green onions was also clean. Only half of the carrot had a bite mark. But the culprit was not far away, chewing a carrot and vegetables, wasting a bunch of food at his feet. This fat bear ignores the rabbits and Sejuan is angry and shocked. Just head into the warehouse to find more food. The rabbit was so angry that he pulled out his hammer and knocked on the bear's head to wake him up, but it was too late. Sejun lifted up the leaf and found that the bear had eaten a third of the sweet potatoes and carrots, only not touching the cherry tomatoes. The whole bunch of rabbits were upset and vented their anger on the bear, causing it to not know what to do, so it ran back to the Zoom car and cried to get it up. He realized that it was wrong. Clearly this bear had grown much bigger than yesterday. Yesterday it was only tall. As much as the rabbits are now gone. Maybe it's because he's in the tower that the animals are different from outside. Now he remembers the tower manager's reminder and feels regretful. At that time, we should have listened instead of repenting. The system window popped up again to remind Sejun that these giant red bears are so greedy that they can eat 100 kilograms of food a day. Fortunately, the system manager was not idle and abandoned Sejun, bowing his head and apologizing. He thought the dragon was jealous because this bear would eat all his food, but he did not expect it to be true. The window jumped out again and reminded the manager that he wanted Sejun to let the bear go. It destroyed the cave, so Sejun also wanted to let it go. But when he raised his head to the roof of the cave, he didn't know how to let this red bear go. A moment later, the braided green onion string was tied in a pretty bow on the bear's chest. The preparations were complete. He patted the bear's body to reassure him that he had tied it securely so he could rest assured. Up there, the rabbit brothers were already in position. Sejun shouted loudly and started pulling. The rope was pulled up and lifted the red bear off the ground. Weight goes hand in hand with appearance on the ground, so rabbits have to try their best to pull it up. Adding a swarm of bees to help out below, still had to grit my teeth. Just picked up the red bear. When he felt his feet sink, he realized he was being taken out of here, so he struggled and protested. Sejun quickly gave him a piece of honey when he was about to cry. He gently whispered and told her to go home to her mother with food before the bear agreed to leave. He raised his hand to say goodbye to the bear. Go back to your mother. There's no food here. I don't know if he understood or not, but he waved enthusiastically. So the tower management mission was completed. Sejun received many new skills. After the rabbits jumped down and returned to the hole, each of them was psychologically traumatized and could always pull the bear up, causing his blood pressure to drop. I haven't eaten anything in the morning and look at the pile of vegetables scattered on the ground and feel sad. What other choice is there but cherry tomatoes? Let's go back to the early days. A few days later everything seemed to have returned to normal. Farming work made the whole cave as busy as ever. Suddenly, a giant shadow appeared at the mouth of the cave, blocking all the light. Hello, the little bear raised his hand to greet the farmers with a bright face. But the sunlight above was blocked with the large body of the mother bear next to it, also staring down into the cave with sparkling eyes. Sejun's face turned pale and purple. All he could say was the word "leave me." Why did the mother bear come here? Sejun was scared and sweating. The white rabbits were also afraid of losing their lives and clung to each other. Even though the little squid was scared, he still held his hammer and was ready to fight at any time. And this uncle is thinking that the bear is here to eat him. Then I imagined him stuffing himself into his mouth to avenge the cub. Oh my God, I don't want to die yet, but I'm scared by my own consciousness. Sejun's face turned pale. Immediately knelt down in tears and begged the mother bear, I'm only skin and bones, it's not good, or you should just eat these rabbits for a while. What's the point of gratitude? It's okay to save your life. Tower manager send a message to say mother bear has no intention of killing you. Sejun was extremely surprised that this guy could understand bear language. Is he also a big dog bear? I don't know what language it is, only the word love I've never heard before. Let's go back to the main issue. Red bear just wants to ask for honey for his cub. Sejun rolled his eyes again. That's all. Why aren't you really here to punish me? The mother bear at the mouth of the cave suddenly roared with an eardrum-piercing sound, cutting off that person's nonsense fantasy. His unusually gentle eyes slowly reached down to the mouth of the cave. Red bear offered to protect the area around the cave and receive a salary in honey. Seeing that the bear's sharp claws were gently placed on the ground, he had no intention of attacking anyone. Both people and rabbits were extremely happy. Fortunately, today we were able to keep all the workers, but we were able to recruit 2 more healthy children. Why wouldn't we agree? The capitalist farmer beamed and immediately accepted the mother bear's offer. The dragon manager texted back that he wanted Sejun to climb onto the bear's paw. If I had a heart, he would have a heart. Okay, and the mother bear lifted him up high. I saw my uncle about to exit the mouth of Bimuk cave below, waving goodbye. Looks like it's no different from breaking up. Lamley sadly looks down from above at the garden of Sejun's blood, anxiously saying thank you to everyone, thanks to you, I am who I am today. Finally, I can escape the situation of being a frog at the bottom of a well and come to the real world of the Black Tower. It sounds like a lot of things, but I just got there. Sejun quickly raised his hand to cover his eyes because a strong light shone straight into his face. When he got used to it, he opened his eyes wide and looked at that thing. A bright ray of light is poking straight into the blue clouds surrounded by midpoint Rocky Mountains stretching to the horizon. The vast space in front of him made Sejun surprised that he was really in a star tower. Squinting my eyes, I looked closely at that dazzling light. It seemed to be just a pillar, immediately managed through the brain. It is an intermediate point. Sejun only knows the G point, but he doesn't know what the middle point is. The dragon had to explain that it was the only device that allowed hunters outside the tower to move between floors. Oh la la, this is exactly what I need right now. Sejun's eyes lit up and I call it happier than Tet. Just use the intermediate point to escape the first floor and get out of this hellish place. But how to get there? He still hasn't figured it out because he was so busy thinking that he didn't notice the bear cub below calling loudly. Maybe I'm jealous because where did this poor guy come from and stand on his mother's arm? Mom understood and immediately let go of Sejun, who was holding a basket of thoughts, and jogged through that wild place to secure a ticket to the afterlife. Sejun turned around and asked the giant bear slave to take him to the pillar and was immediately rejected. His head also changed numbers very quickly, isn't it funny? Actually, that place is not Red Bear's territory. Moreover, I have to defeat 3,000 monsters to get to her. If I leave, then who will take care of Baby Bear? Sejun looked regretfully at the teleportation gate, hearing the part about fighting monsters and already having a headache. Mother Bear pointed to the forest in front of her, indicating that her territory only extended from there to the area around here. Most monsters would not dare to come to places like this. So if he wants to go out, I'm a red bear who can't protect him. While Sejun sadly accepts the painful truth. The bee in the farm had also reached the place where the squid brought his backpack up to show the mini red bear. His eyes lit up when he saw her. I rushed to hug my brother who had brought me home to my mother, one head of a howling weasel, but then he shook hands in joy. Happily rubbing the big bear's head. As soon as the mother bear saw the bee, she immediately breathed out a breath demanding honey, making her scared and hid behind Sejun. He promised to do it, so he pulled out a bottle of premium honey and licked the squid rabbit's head. Seeing that there was something delicious, the cub immediately looked at the bottle of honey with hungry eyes. Obediently put out both hands to catch the delicious stream of golden nectar. Seeing the mother bear attentively watching her baby suck the honey, Sejun offered to share some with her, but she shook her head and refused. She kept such a precious thing for her baby. They were unlucky in a place where they could not fight cockfights. There's not much to eat when eating this gravel. The little bear continued to be skinny until it reached Sejun's den before it grew in size. When Sejun heard that, the corner of his mouth twitched a few times and he ate all of your warehouse. It's not big. Thanks to him, the brothers had to go back to living in famine. The mother bear believes that thanks to the bee's honey, the cubs can grow quickly. Now he wondered if there was no food, would the cub have to starve? The mother bear was so worried about looking for her baby that she hadn't eaten for 3 days, making Sejun panic. How could you be so self-indulgent? Cannot let his potential slave starve to death without doing anything. He immediately ordered the squid rabbit to prepare things. Today I will show off my virtual chef skill of tossing the pan for you all to admire. The squid was in charge of knocking on the fish's heads. The white rabbit quickly ironed the carrot. All ingredients are placed in a pan of water and boiled over high heat. Sprinkle some chopped green onions on top to complete a delicious pot of soup to the last drop. Sejun tasted a tablespoon and was extremely satisfied with this dish. The 2 rabbit brothers also helped make some additional dishes. Set out a table of grilled fish, grilled tomatoes and verts. Is Mr. Boss's tomato soup? Looking at the pile of delicious food in front of the mother bear, she was extremely surprised. Even though the little bear's stomach was full, his mouth was still drooling. Worm Truck proudly introduces the nutritious fish soup. Although it lacks a bit of ingredients, it's still top-notch. You have to eat well to be able to serve me. Ah, take care of your children, right? The little bear couldn't resist the lure of the dish, so he threw his face into the bowl of soup. Mother Bear's furry arms suddenly grabbed Sejun and her other hand covered the two rabbits, thinking that the fattest one would be the main dish. It turns out I'm hugging all three tightly in my arms. This is the mother bear's way of expressing gratitude to Sejun, but it's a bit too passionate, so he's about to suffocate. That happy scene was shown on the dragon's magic ball, making it breathe a sigh of relief. Since the baby bear left the dragon's den, he has always followed the mother bear closely because he was afraid that he would attack him. Who would have thought that he just wanted to ask for food for his baby? The great love between mothers and fathers moved the dragon's heart, so he offered to be the interpreter for Mother Bear. This unexpectedly good result made the tower manager extremely satisfied since he now had a mother bear to protect Sejun. Sejun will save one thing, just stay at home and wait for the food to come to your teeth. That's killing two birds with one stone. Dreaming about a bright future makes a dragon tremble with joy and praise himself. What a black dragon! Damn, this dragon's talent and proud laughter. It was so loud that even the headquarters of the Travel Merchant Investigation Department could hear it. Tangerine's resume is sitting on a hairy hand. This information is so vague. The empty fox was still connected to Skyrim's information and knew that this cat was just a foolish merchant. But this huge sales number proves the opposite. The secretary went into the room holding a folder of documents after the theft at the bridge landlord's warehouse on the 55th floor. Some goods have been entering the black market. Here is the list of stolen items that the director requested. Zeros don't give much credit to that brick guy because he is a cruel landlord who steals from the poor to give to the rich. Flip View report constantly grumbling that the director should not take on petty theft cases like this. The fox smelled the merchant cat on the 75th floor and jumped up like a spring. He quickly put on his cloak and hated her. Go investigate. I'm sure I'll have to find out the secret behind everything. Let's wait. Returning to Sejun's unstable farm, it's been 3 days since he signed the contract with the Red Bear mother and daughter. Plus 2 additional laborers to join his team. Sejun placed a carefully wrapped bundle in the mother bear's hand. Who else is as good as him so that the patrolling staff can even prepare breakfast? Every morning it leaves the herd to patrol around. Sejun and the rabbits at home continue to find ways to improve the land outside the cave. However, the situation is not very positive because the land here is completely different from the land because of many limitations. Even the magic of the rabbit is not clear. Sejun discovered that under the dry soil there were many rocks and stones. If he didn't find a way to fix it, farming would be impossible. Just as I was distraught, I heard the sound of running. Sejun quickly looked over and saw the baby bear, excitedly stirring up the soil. It was like a new tractor. It just kicked up the ground and the 2 rabbits quickly carried the wheelbarrow and brought out the amount of rock. The baby bear helped him solve a difficult problem. Everyone, please start working right away. After a while of plowing the shore, the little bear was rewarded with a huge sweet potato and a shower of compliments while the rabbits were still shoveling rocks. Looking at her happily munching on the potatoes, he suddenly realized that in just a few days, it had already grown noticeably bigger. If he had kept fighting with the bears in the cave the other day, they would have destroyed all of them. After resting, the boss also had to start making Sejun and put the sprouted potato on the ground. Because this land is too barren, he has to plant tubers first and then wait for the soil to become more loose before he can plant cherry tomatoes. Smart calculations help him increase his experience and seeding skills. Suddenly the sound of the cub digging in the ground attracted Sejun's attention. As soon as the potato was placed under the hole, it disappeared, leaving only a pair of innocent eyes sparkling as if to say, "Do you think the baby is good?" "Tomorrow damn, you told me again bear, it's a bear." I saw everyone continuously digging. Lap thought he was playing a hidden treasure game with me, so he ran over to find it. The entire land where sweet potatoes were grown was eaten by a red bear. Not a single scrap of Sejun's efforts with his 2 rabbits from morning until now were gone. The little bear realized his mistake, so he collapsed and sat back in a corner, but the white rabbit was chipped and cleaned for another song, so he cried. Sejuan sighed and tried to find a way to keep the red bear from sitting still so he could teach him how to plant, cultivate and report less. On the 38th floor of the Black Tower, tangerines are making waves with the magical auction of citrus fruits. Today I bring here 1,800 fruits, every 300 fruits. As soon as he finished speaking, the crowd began to compete with each other to bid, making the auction take place smoothly. But when I checked the money, I saw that it was less than last time and immediately lamented. If only there was a better customer like last time. Wouldn't that be delicious? As he was about to pick up his bag and leave, Quiet was interrupted by a voice calling Dongsik to ask him if he had seen him complete the last transaction. After that, they cleared their throats a few times and told Uncle Sejuan that Kim Dongsik of the Order of the Phoenix had made good arrangements with his family so they weren't worried at all. I know, but why aren't you participating in the auction today? It's because Dongsik has more important things to do. Smiling from ear to ear, he pulled out a phone because his daughter loved cats, so he wanted to take a picture of the tangerine to bring home, and then took out a bag of chili powder as a gift. Also specially recommend Koreans can't live without this dish. Before he could finish his sentence, Tangerine burst into laughter and immediately made Dongsik howl and couldn't stop him in time. Only heard a shrill distorted sound and the cat's fur stood up and jumped up in Dongsik's surprise. The whole forest was filled with a majestic, tongue-burning scream, everyone. A moment later, Tangerine went to the store to meet the deer to upgrade his space bag. She sullenly walked out, her tongue was still tingling in pain. It was true that the mouth was harming the body. His mouth was still wet and sore, but he still walked happily down the street. Thanks to expanding his space bag, he could now carry even more cherry tomatoes. This is a good investment to receive a rain of compliments from Sejuan, opening his mouth and smiling evilly. Sooner or later, I will earn 1,000 dong thap and become an intermediate merchant and then president of the Merchants Association. At that time, Sejuan will having to kneel before me is truly an ambitious cat. However, before achieving all of that, he still needs to stop by the grocery store to run some errands for Sejuan. Suddenly a faint scent passed through her nose. What smell is so fragrant? Looking around, I discovered that the scent was coming from the rows of cork skewers over there. Tangerine tingles, I had to appease my tongue with this dish before giving me a fish skewer. Boss, please give me 1 dong thap. The Mandarin didn't give the money right away, but he was thick-faced enough to bargain for the baby, which made the boss sweat profusely. As soon as he opened the store, he immediately met a customer who couldn't stand it. There's nothing more satisfying than eating discounted food, tangerines, happily splashing around on the street, laughing and not seeing the sun. Hello sir, a man wearing a hoodie suddenly approached, causing him to stop. Looking closely, I realized that this was not a stupid fox tricked by Scarum. Why did the fat cat still remember him? That guy was so happy that his inner self was silently cursing. Don't you dare call me a stupid fox when you ruined my criminal hunt. But he still tried to force a smile and introduce himself. My name is Zirez. I'm a special agent, everyone. Are you looking for me for something? Tangerine wondered when this fox came all the way here looking for him, but Zeros just smiled and said he wanted to repay you. If you're free, I'll invite you to eat a seafood buffet. But Tangerine flatly refused, waving his tail and walking away to do Zeros. Both surprised. First time seeing a cat criticize fish like this. Losing to this glue Zeros to other glues, or should I go drink tea to make him feel good? But the tangerine's tongue is still burning, so I'm just complaining. Still don't give up. Recently, there's a super famous cake shop that's hard for ordinary people to reach. People always invite tangerines to come here with them, but until then there's very little sweets. Look, am I not fat enough? I don't understand why this fox is so stubborn. Could it be that he's flirting with me? Unsuccessful persuasion causes burning, hot blood, gnashing of teeth. Who would have thought that this idiot would be so difficult to seduce? Then this is the only way. Even though I don't like it at all. Please, this pitiful wail rang out and sent a thud to the ground, shocking Tangerine and even the agent himself, forcing him to use the stalking trick. Seeing that fox screaming in agony, I also felt a bit scared to hear the story of suffering from a cold. From the time I started trading until now, I've always been deceived because I lacked the skills of a merchant. It wasn't until he saved him from the cunning scarum that he reduced these zeros to a pitiful appearance and cleverly flattered Tangerine that he was the kindest person he had ever met. Then increased the dollar by showing worship. I want to become a talented merchant, a best-seller like the Tangerine Man. This senseless way strikes at the cat's ignorance. Just hearing the words talented merchant and best-seller makes the cat stand up. He's already very happy, but he's still pretending to be a jerk to make your relationship difficult, so I'll give you some tips to make zeros confused. Thank you. But little did he know that he had fallen into the trap of this cunning fox. This trick always worked to relieve a bit of humiliation, but it still worked. Tangerine leaned into his ear to remind him to stand up. People passing by kept looking at each other, making him feel shy. I excitedly asked where Tangerine would teach me, but now I had to go to the smithy to buy some things. Zeros widened his eyes in surprise. What did this person need there? The whole long way he just focused on thinking about that, but Tangerine was completely clueless. Finally, the two arrived at an old smithy and banged on the door, but no one opened it. So just walk in and feel like you're at home. Inside, there are many weapons scattered around, some of which can't be valued even to zeros. However, there are also things that have gathered dust and no one wants to buy them. Tangerine stood in front of the counter and asked the seller who was reading the newspaper if the items here cost 20 dong. The fox wanted to keep his eyes open to see what terrible skills the cat would teach him at this dilapidated store. At that moment, the fox suddenly remembered that before going to the smithy, he asked the cat what he was going to buy. But the cat didn't bother to say anything and just walked past the fabric stores to the weapons stalls on the side of the road. Zeros couldn't help but stop and admire the Mandarin and called him in to see some of the high-end goods inside. Yet the cat didn't even bother to glance back at the old smithy. The salesman still didn't bother to put down the newspaper and curtly told the two of them to choose. If something was too old, he would reforge it for you. As soon as he finished speaking, he immediately climbed up and slammed his foot on the table. Boss, please reduce the pain. I'm so used to this that I just call it calm. The fox next to him was spraying stiff glue. Completely amazed by the cat's skills,